Thank you.
I'd like to welcome you all to the November 19th meeting of the Merrimack Village District. Please rise and join me in the pledge of flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is financial review. Michelle Holden.
The September financials had gone out with the memo reviewing September, and that is my intention. We should with November be able to do that each month. So that will go out and just detail out some of what we'll review as far as things being over and under budget or projections. For October, we are at 33% complete of the year. Looking at the profit and loss budget versus actual for the total company. And as expected, our water sales domestic are beyond that point. We normally would see that in the warmer months of the year, and as we've noted before, mercantile and industrial water sales are going to show an over and under. That's because of some reclassing that's happened. A lot of items were under industrial that really belonged under mercantile after further review over this last year. And overall, the revenues are at 37.8% of the projection. Going down into the expenses, we've noted before the administrative overtime, but office supporters offsetting overall. The department's coming in at 35.4%, slightly over budget, but we're offsetting with distribution and treatment coming in at 31.5, and we're also bringing down the hours. We presently have someone temporarily helping us that we're hoping is going to come on permanent. They've been a great help, so we're going to pursue some talks regarding that after the holiday.
And that's a budgeted position? Or?
Yes, yes, that was for this year. Also previously noted the purchase of water. Last month was running about 47,000 over budget. We're presently at 59, and going forward the next few months we don't anticipate.
No.
Okay.
Just straight paid.
Okay. Okay. So we think that should level off for a time.
So what number was that? That was
account
64?
60300, purchase of water. And pardon my voice, but I'm still getting over the laryngitis,
Yeah,
so sometimes when I project it's going to be a bit off.
That's at 64,452, right?
Yes, correct.
And I saw in last month's, there was this that you sent out.
Yes.
I talked about reviewing scenarios in which we need water in the agreement with Pennachuck. What is, can you provide any more information on that or anything? Like what scenarios are you talking about? Or
We haven't yet. We can
Okay.
put something together.
all right, I didn't know if
Okay,
you
yeah,
already-
Ron was looking at the agreement.
So the decision, like thresholds that we talked about a couple of weeks back, like when this first happened, like when we're looking at wellheads and so on, and
Do we all that? I
define
want to
threshold points.
look at the agreement as well.
Okay.
There may be a way that when we do use it, it could be built differently.
Okay. Now that agreement, sorry to interrupt there.
No, not
That
at all,
agreement, we
please.
talked about that about 3 months back, that we need to spend significant money for Pennachuck to even look at defining an agreement or entering an agreement. So it was like a 5-figure
Different agreement.
different agreement.
Different agreement.
Okay.
We actually have an agreement in force now that allows us to get up to 1 million gallons a day. I want to look at that, and then maybe something we can do with that initial agreement to change some things around so that it's not as expensive.
Okay, and what is the other agreement that we
The other
talked about a
one-
couple months ago?
The other one was a short-term, you know, if you can call it the right thing now, because I don't have it in front of me. It was like a short-term agreement, basically just with a special rate
Right.
until we can get 4 and 5 back online.
Okay. Okay, so that would not be in place of a ongoing agreement to polish off the during.
It would just be a temporary, then we'll go right back to the rate that we're paying now.
Okay. Okay.
So with items like these, we'll just monitor later on in the year where they're at and look to other accounts that we can do an offset where we have the bottom line budget. So we just keep tally of things that have gone markedly over and find places to, basically we don't actually do a transfer, we do keep a tracking of it. We keep things as they were entered and as they actually occurred so that we can see, you know, what was off as we build budgets going forward.
Okay.
Motor vehicle expenses also above the 33% reference mark for the timing in the year. September inspections for all trucks is what contributes to that. We also, and that was account 60500, and the 70550 and 70650. We previously mentioned those two. Turkey Hill, we had the emergency booster situation for 70550, and R&M tanks 70650 will be encumbered next month. I'll review with you all the various agreements from the prior fiscal year to get approval to basically offset those funds from the prior year budget. So they'll be moved out of expense here, and you'll just see them at the very end. We're presently seeing, last year we saw some prior year budgeted expenses we'll see under other income and expense. So that's going to move out and not be against budget for this year.
The Turkey Hill thing, last time we met, there was like some parts that need to be installed yet. Has that been done by now? So
It has. Yeah, no, with the pump is back.
Yeah, we returned the,
That's been returned, so
Right.
yeah.
we've got backup in the station right now.
Thank you.
And the debt service was simply larger bond payments that were made earlier in the year, is why we see the figures compared to their percentage of budget a bit higher. Overall, our net ordinary income is at $237,000. And with our revenues being where they are at and the various unexpected expenses, we're in a good position. As I said, as we move through the year and get closer to final quarter, that's where we make adjustments and are very thoughtful about any expenditures that need to be made as we move forward. The next report was the previous year comparison. This will get more meaningful as we go forward because we're following the same methods and timing of accounting, but it is starting to smooth out, and we can see that compared to the same time last year. Our revenues are $65,000 over total income, and as we came down to the bottom line for net ordinary income, just an additional $18,000 above where we were at the same period last year, but do consider that there are various correcting entries and adjustments that were being done still at this period. I would say going forward from November on, it's going to be very much the same accounting methods each month. So I think after November, December, we'll start to see some more meaningful comparison there.
So
Does-
the fines and penalties, since they're like, you said 42% or something like that here, or actually turn on off water 42%, that seems really high.
Okay, and you are looking at the revenue?
Yeah,
For
I
the-
actually had it in the report too, but I mean, we're also 25% over last year already on the fines and penalties. Do we have a lot of delinquent accounts, past due accounts or something, that this is so high right now? Or?
What we're doing right now is just making sure that we're diligently assessing any fees that are applicable. So in the past, perhaps, sometimes not all might have been captured, but when people do go past due, Per the parameters we share, and then subsequent notices, we do assess the fines.
But there's no noticeable increase of late or past due accounts or something like, or it just seems like a really high number, 42% after 3 months of the budget.
You are looking,
I'm looking at your board account 4410. Service
Okay.
charge John on water.
oh, the 4,200, okay. Compared to last year, we're $365 more
Yeah.
than we had been at. And also, we were comparing numbers from when we built this budget from multiple prior years where things may have been assessed, perhaps miscellaneous charges had some things that belonged, transfer fees might have, so some things might have been in different accounts than we're presently categorizing things.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
I'm good.
Seeing none?
No?
Thank you, thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, I did want to touch base on a couple of items. As far as the bank balances. After the holiday, I'm going to be talking with a few folks about some investment options for us, for some of the monies that we don't have immediate cash flow needs for, to get a little bit better interest rate. So once I get that information, I can just do a comparison, and I will share that with you. Also, regarding the New Hampshire retirement, not the 457 account, the 457 is simply employee contributions. So there's no expense component additional to that for MVD. So we're going to start with the approval we do for payroll, doing an ACH to transfer that to the employees' accounts. Right now what we do is we wait till the end of the month, and then we do it the entire month together. So it's getting into the employees' accounts later than it could. So I'm just going to start adding a report so that you'll see that with the payroll processing each week, that is simply transmitted to their accounts at IMARC. And as far as the New Hampshire retirement system, I'll still include the invoices for review and approval with AP, but we're going to set it up to do an ACH, similar to what we do right now with the TD Bank credit card. You'll see a check, but it says non-negotiable, and they do an ACH and just automatically take it out on the due date. So we're going to do the same thing for New Hampshire retirement, so you will approve prior to it getting paid, but we'll just do it as ACH because they have some cutoffs, some processing that's caused crossovers and late penalties that then got adjusted off, and it just goes back and forth, but it'll work a little smoother for us to have those two additional items also be ACH.
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the August 20th, September 7th, September 17th, and October 15th. And we have more.
I'm good on the August 20th. I'll move to approve them as written.
All of them?
August 20 only.
August 20 only. I hear a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You have questions on September 7th?
Yes. Okay.
I do too.
You want to go? You want me to go?
I have 1 year of anyway, so. I think there's something missing on page 2 that I believe I brought up every time we talked about this, and that is ground contamination, if that's been looked at for the artificial recharge. So the second paragraph there, I'm sure one way or another that has been mentioned, that before we go too far into this, we need to understand if there's any chance that we contaminate water by way of running it through that dirt for artificial recharge. So,
Yeah, that's part of it.
just want this to be on record that we have raised that question repeatedly.
So what's
Yeah.
the language that you want added?
W. Funchon requested that the chance of ground or dirt contamination is being investigated, and any impact on the artificial recharge. Something like that.
So you want me to come up with something?
You know me.
That's-
It's been mentioned before. It's the same thing.
Okay, so just to,
I can give you some language for it.
Yeah.
I know what you want.
okay.
Don't ask the chairman.
What do you have?
All right, on the first page, there's a couple grammar things. Probably about 2/3 of the way down the first page, the line says, "This would reduce the need to build an iron and manganese treatment plant." It's A&D, it should just be and. The next line is, well 3, reduce sodium chloride that is pumped into the water system. There's a misspelling on into. And then third line up from the bottom, the word toward, T-O-W-A-R-D. Second page, second paragraph, third line down in the paragraph, water's misspelled. And then I think the next line after that says, thereby lengthening the life of the carbon used for treating PFAS. Should be a D at the end of use. And I think the heading, if you look down at the heading, the second paragraph from the bottom, second paragraph up from the bottom, it says PFAS treatment feasibility for wells 7 and 8 and 2 and 3. I think he was talking about the lime treatment feasibility on that one.
Agreed.
I think we're short some chairs, guys.
Oh, you were going to take this? Okay.
Actually, do you want to move up? I can move up and down.
No, I there's a chair out there. I will share this chair.
Right here.
So
Yeah, you're right.
I think that was just, instead of PFAS, I think you just say lime.
Right.
Very last sentence on that page, 2 of 3, says the electrical work for a mixer for this tank. I just think it'd be clearer if we said the Turkey Hill tank. That's the one we were talking about, I think, right? 'Cause I don't know if because it talks about the booster station, but it doesn't really talk about what tank. We know it's the Turkey Hill tank associated with that, so I just think it'd be a little clearer. On page 3, the first paragraph, about halfway down, says a rate scenario for each of 3 potential projects. I think we should add in there, already included in the CIP, or any combination of these will be run. So I think we should add a rate scenario for each of 3 potential projects, add in there already included in the CIP, because it doesn't really give clarity on which 3 projects I think he's referring to there, is it?
Isn't that the filtering projects? They wouldn't be in the CIP, would they?
The iron and manganese treatment for, what was 2? I think that's the only one, the 3 scenarios included were with PFAS, with
Oh, all right. I thought he was talking about bringing the CIP numbers already, what's in the CIP, into the rate study. But maybe not. He's talking about, I'm not really sure what 3 projects he's talking about there, but.
I think it's how it was broken up in the rate study, where option A, B, C, and D.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I think it refers to that.
Yeah, that was in September.
All right.
Okay.
That sounds good. Later on, it says a look with be taken. I think it wants to say a look will be taken. All right. And then under the CIP, the second sentence in there says deep prevention noted that the treatment at wells 7 and 8, you want to add the word wells, for PFAS. What I said was
Do you want wells between Secor 2 and 3 as well?
Yes. And I also want so I wanted to say wells 7 and 8 for PFAS, and then instead of saying and, I wanted to say is more of a priority than at wells 2 and 3. And then after 2 and 3, you can add which can be possibly pushed to a later date. So if I read everything back, it'll say, D. Prevention noted that the treatment at wells 7 and 8 for PFAS is more of a priority than at wells 2 and 3, which can possibly be pushed to a later date. I think that reads the way I discussed it.
Yeah.
A couple paragraphs down, D. Prevention noted that that is unknown how to get any future treatment tanks. I want you to put the word treatment in there. So in other words, how do we get any future treatment tanks that may be needed into the treatment buildings at 7 and 8? People might be confusing with storage tanks and treatment tanks. And that's all I got for that one.
Anybody hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the September 7 minutes as modified.
Second.
Second? Second by Wolf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have Tony abstaining?
What? What?
You were just volunteered to abstain.
No, I didn't say anything.
No, I know, but are we abstaining because you weren't at that meeting?
Yes. I didn't say it loud enough? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so,
401.
No.
yep.
Next one, September 17th. Changes?
I do.
You do?
Big surprise. Anybody else want to go first? Okay, second page. And what I did here was I'm going to give this to you, Jill. So let me read it first. Actually, why don't you take it? And then when I read it, you can...
I'll make a copy if you want to.
Actually, that is a copy. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, let me see here. The second paragraph, basically, under number 2 over there, under letter A. Kate Pratt noted some work has been done on the project in 2016. At the time, I think he wanted to say parameters were to have temporary treatment at wells 4 and 5. It says perimeters. And a few lines below that, it says the treatment at wells 4 and 5 will meet the standards with redundancy. I want to say GAC redundancy because I think that's what the design is called for. A little bit further on, it talks about wells 3. I think it should just say well 3. And then I wanted to insert before the paragraph that says D. Preventure questioned. I basically wanted to say that D. Preventure confirmed with Kate Pratt that adding GAC treatment to well 3 would raise the $4.5 million cost in the CIP for iron and manganese treatment to $5 million. And I actually went back to the video of that meeting. If you wanted to check that, it's at the hour mark, 1 hour, 0 minutes, and 33 seconds. And then continuing, it says, and provide GAC treatment at well 2 would require a new building with cost of $4.2 million. So if nobody objects to that, I don't know if Jill, if you want to, maybe we can approve this change and have, if Jill wants to go back to the video to confirm that that's correct. whatever you guys want to do. I don't care.
I can do that.
It's fine.
I still got some others on here. Let's see. In that same paragraph, the D Prevention noted he would prefer to consolidate treatment rather than have redundant infrastructure at each well. And then at the end of that paragraph, I just wanted to add some more words to say D Prevention noted that it may be possible to build a centralized treatment plant at the MVD garage on Continental Boulevard to treat wells 2 and 3 and supply water to the high pressure zone through a connection to Scott Drive across Natticook Brook, and to move the headquarters, the MVD headquarters there in the future. And I believe that's also in the video if you want to confirm that as well. The only other thing I have is on page 3, item 4B. D Prevention noted that the TV station doesn't, is misspelled, want to air the meetings. And then page 4, second paragraph down, it says this would include PFOS/PFOS. I think it wants to be PFOA/PFOS. And then he would like to see historically monthly consumption, historical monthly consumption, which I guess is what it says. Oh, plotted on a graph. That's what I wanted to add. So he would like to see historical monthly consumption plotted on a graph.
Well, not just with the consumption, the data points all together. Also the levels.
Yeah,
Really all data points, not just consumption.
right. Yeah, so we'd like to see monthly consumption and, I guess, water quality levels plotted on a graph. I do talk about PFOA, PFAS, sodium chloride, and consumption above that, so maybe you could just say you would like to see these monthly historical data plotted on a graph. Probably captures everything. And that's all I got.
Anybody else have anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as amended.
Second. Somebody?
Second.
Cool. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Tony, can I abstain again?
You vote, Tony?
Yeah.
Next one, October 15th.
Shall I?
Anything for October?
I do.
You do.
Under number 2, second paragraph under number 2, B. Kernan noted that there is on-site testing at TCI in this area. Water quality is being monitored. I think it should say at monitoring in other wells. Water quality is being monitored, because right now it says water quality is being monitored and monitoring at other wells.
And monitoring at the wells, okay.
And then it says that areas within 15 feet of the wells are testing at 100 parts per trillion. Don't be alarmed, it's 1,500 feet. And that's in video at exactly the 10-minute mark, if you want to go back and look. Further down that paragraph, well 7 and 8 were off due to green sand plus upgrades, is what I'd like to add, when the contamination was found. that true, Ron? That was right, it was because of the green sand upgrade, right? And,
It's actually
Well,
the constructing
actually, we're
the treatment
building,
plant,
yeah.
it wasn't just the upgrades, it was the whole
the
treatment
whole
plant.
construction,
They built.
green sand construction. Yeah. The whole plant was being constructed, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to clarify why the wells were off. You could just say due to construction of the treatment plant. And then we got 3 more. Page 2, very last paragraph. Treatment for PFAS at wells 7 and 8 will need 2 to 12-foot diameter vessels. I think it's clearer if we spell the word 2 out so people aren't thinking the diameter is 2 feet.
Yep.
So it'd be 2 12-foot diameter vessels. On page 3, under section B, 3 lines down. This is what is projected to be needed to, and I want to add, to maintain existing infrastructure, and get rid of the word anyway. This is what is projected to be needed to maintain existing infrastructure, period. And my last comment is on page 4. And I think after the second paragraph, under where it says Wolf Von Schoen noted the extension makes total sense. Keep going under there. I want the last sentence to say, or maybe add another paragraph in there, that D. Preventer asked if any residents along the Wire Road Bryant Circle water line extension asked for this. And Ron Miner said no. So I remember asking if any of the residents along that water line extension were asking for that
Right, it wasn't
extension.
requested by any of them.
Right.
Alright,
I just
slow it
think,
down a little bit for me, Don.
yeah. D. Preventer asked if any residents along the Wire Road / Bryant Circle water line extension asked for this, and our minor said no. There were no requests for extension.
Is that it?
Actually,
That is it for me.
I have another one.
Yep.
Same spot. I don't remember my exact wording, but I know that I stated that, and I referred to an earlier part of the meeting, the presentation of Clark and Brendan about the possible expansion of the contamination zone and radius. And as part of that, I had said that if that were to happen, we're going to be glad to have that extension in place, because at that point we may have to consider adding these residents to public water.
So you're talking about the groundwater management zone?
Yeah, exactly.
That was
Right. I
extended.
don't remember the exact wording, and we probably have to go back to the same. I don't know if you have the timestamp on this one too.
Don't have that
You
one?
don't have that one, but I do remember that was the reason why I voted for this one, because I didn't want to be caught later on in a situation where we have to spend that money anyway, and where people have to wait for public water.
So we're gonna have to table that one until I can get the wording.
Okay.
Okay. We finish with item 1.
Move the table? We have to do that?
We just table
No,
it.
just table it.
Ron, you asked me to move item 4 up
Yes,
in place with 2,
yes.
and that would be Jamie Emery and Garrett.
Finally.
Good evening.
Well, I'm here, mine will be relatively brief, I think. I was asked to discuss the grant application that we submitted November 1st to the state. As we discussed, and you've been discussing, the meeting with DES on October 15th, there was a conversation that was held about TCI and the industrial park and what possible influences they have had on groundwater quality and surface water quality, specifically on Witches Brook. They presented the Witches Brook as having elevated levels of PFOA and PFOS that flow from the industrial park all the way about 2.5 miles where they were measuring. And then there was some discussion about pumping of 7 and 8 and what kind of influences they would have on the industrial park area and TCI. And we had, back in 1999, 2000 time period, had done a very detailed groundwater model that demonstrated that pumping of 7/8 would not reach out in that far to TCI and the industrial park. That's before we knew there was any problem there. We just had to find the groundwater flow boundaries to be along that road that goes next to the Wright Farm. And then it became apparent to us that in the conversation, Brandon had suggested that there was some funding available for the groundwater source water protection program. And one of the things that's been out there that we haven't really got our handle on is how the peat plays a role in groundwater storage, but also in protecting or influencing groundwater quality on 7 and 8. And you can think about the peat as a big body of organic mass that's 15 feet thick and square miles in size because of the width of the peat along the Witches Brook. That it would act as a sponge for aerial deposition of PFOA and PFOS. And that would be kind of the bad news, is that there's a chance that it actually has accumulated a lot of PFOA and PFOS. And I guess the good news is that peat is organic material, it's carbon, and it actually is a natural carbon and maybe providing you some natural treatment as as PFOA and PFOS drop into the groundwater system. The irony and the kind of the surprise is that the surface water values are higher than the groundwater values. Surface water values were shown at 45 parts per trillion in the Witches Brook, and we're seeing at 20 to 25 right now in terms of the value in the groundwater. So maybe half of what we're seeing, half of that. So the proposal was to develop a strategy to look at how the peat plays a role in this environment, and get a sense as to what's the concentrations of PFOA and PFOS in the peat itself. What's the do an updated surface water assessment, go upgrading of TCI in the industrial park to see if indeed we're seeing 0, and then we come into downgrading of TCI and seeing how much we pick up. And then I'm of the opinion that there was some suggestion that the pumping of 7 and 8 would adversely impair groundwater quality down gradient, but we see that the contamination in the Witches Brook is almost the same 2.5 miles down gradient than it is near wells 7 and 8, which as well as I do, the contribution of base flow to the stream goes far beyond the influence of 7 and 8. So there's obviously some other contribution of PFOA and PFOS into that creek. So I worked with Don back and forth a little bit, with Wolf, I think, to a certain extent, just to Ron and Jill, just to kind of say, okay, here's what we think would be a good work of action. So we proposed a $30,000 grant, $20,000 to be paid for by the state, $10,000 to be paid for by the MVD. And the reality is this board doesn't have to approve it. We had a really short time frame to get it in. If we get the grant, you guys can make a decision: is it worthy of pursuing or not? If we don't get it, no harm, no loss. But I think it's valuable, in my view, that at some point we need to understand a little bit better. And we might be very fortunate that the peat is actually acting as a pre-treatment for PFOA and PFOS in the 7 and 8 region.
Jamie, where is the peat located? Is it closer to the surface or is it down deep?
No, it's ground surface, so you
It's
can
right at
walk-
the surface?
Yeah, you can walk
Oh.
out into Witches Brook area and actually
All
you're
right,
stepping
that
on
makes more
peat.
sense then, because
Yeah.
I'm trying to...
Yeah,
Right.
and we found before in drilling some monitoring wells out there that it's as deep as 15 feet. Now, I expected it might be thicker as you get out in an area you can't walk in. And Chip might know because he's been here forever, to reach down the peat. I mean, I could be deeper than 15 feet.
I gone through about 5 foot of water, fell through the ice one time out there, and is the peat, I wanted to ask you, is the peat, is that anything to do with the manganese level in that water?
Yeah, so it causes a reducing environment, so that causes iron and manganese to be elevated. I think, we're just trying to be, I was trying to be responsive to the discussion you had with Brandon on the 15th. I certainly wasn't trying to push anything on anybody, but if this is an opportunity for some free money, and we have this question in our mind, that I think it made sense. So that's kind of that you all have that application in your package, and I think at the time they make a decision, which will be down the road, you certainly have the right to say, no, we're not interested, but at least it's in. We had a very, October 15th is when they presented. November 1st was the deadline. We had 2 weeks to kind of throw it together and put it in, so I did that.
And I'll take responsibility for calling you and talking about it, and I hope the message got out to you guys through an email or something, because I didn't want to be doing this without anybody knowing, So I know Jamie and I were talking about it, and since Brandon suggested it at the meeting, the time limit was so short, we kind of had to act.
Quickly. And like I said, you're not committed to it. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. The second thing I wanted to chat with you about is a request of putting this data into a graphical format. And so what I did today, just to kind of start, but I think if we do this officially, we'll need to do, we'll have to get some kind of agreement to continue to do it as as part of the consulting thing. But let me just hand this out to you. This is 7 and 8. Here's 2 and 8, and here's 2 and 3. And
I can share it.
yeah, you can just pass those down. There's 2. There's one for everybody, I think, and I just need to load this stuff.
Yep.
So if you look at the yeah, it's for wells 7 and 8, and for wells 2 and 3. So look at the title at the top. So if you just look at wells for the moment, 2 and 3, it's interesting, and actually look at 7 and 8 at the same time. If you look before July 1st, 2016, it's this area here where you got this clump of data. This clump of data is a bit problematic, Tony. This clump where there's, it's all over the place. So, when we started getting involved in the PFOA and PFOS issues, we were ahead of the game, ahead of the curve relative to water quality labs being able to actually measure accurately PFOA and PFOS. And then we're using different methods, and there were different labs, with different QA, QCs, and you'll see that there's a very highly variable. I mean, we go for number 8 in well set in 2016 from essentially less than 10 to almost 50. Well, we don't believe that's real. We believe those are issues that were established with the laboratory problems that were there.
It's like we were hitting our highs and lows at the same time.
At the same time. But I think if you look at it, one of the things that I believe is that well 7 has actually decreased in PFOA and PFOS since 2016, and well 8 slightly increased. And right now we're looking at a combined, the halfway mark of the dashed line is the 35 parts per trillion, or half the standard. So our numbers are, if you look here, our numbers are all below half the standard, what we're at right now. With the latest sampling event being at for well 7 at about 25 parts per trillion, and well 8 was about 18.5 parts per trillion. So they're relatively low at 7 and 8 at this particular moment, and they seem to be, they do cycle. You'll see a little bit of a variability if I connect the dots. You can see it on this thing. If I connect the dots, you'll see some variability over seasons, and that's rainfall. And one of the things I'd like to do is when we do this, in the future, I'd like to put down the rainfall events and how does that reflect, drought versus heavy precipitation, the timing, cumulative amount of water in the system, and so forth. Because I think we'll see some variability on that.
Jamie, I do have that.
You do?
Yeah, we log it every day.
Yeah, so that we can take your database and then incorporate into this graphical, I'll figure out some
And
way.
then post it on the website.
Yeah, we would do whatever you like. It's fine. Yeah.
You lost me.
I definitely in favor of that. It's,
Yeah.
it
I
is
mean,
what it is. It's
we can do however you
not
want.
political, it's black
Yeah.
and white. It
black
is
and
what it is.
When you say post-treatment here, that's post-iron manganese treatment.
Yeah, so that's, and it's post-treatment, meaning that it's 7 and 8 combined. So, in
One
other words,
sample from-
it's a sample that's, and it should always come in the middle.
But when we publish that, we need to change that label. That's going to be confusing because it reads right now post-treatment PFOA and PFOS. People
Well, it
are
is-
going to read it, it's after PFOA, PFOS treatment.
Yes, so
yeah.
there's no treatment on there yet, so it is post-iron and manganese,
Where did
correct.
that treatment go?
Yeah, that can be addressed.
Right.
We
Done
already
here.
have treatment.
Let's go.
Right, so I just want to give you I just wanted to give you that sense. One of the things is we're involved, and I'm pretty much involved in this as well with the state and on a variety of different fronts, that the state's working through the deliberation of a new standard and how that's going to end up, coming down the pike. And there's a lot of information that the state's going to have to look at. One of the things that they have to look at is what is Europe doing? What's Australia doing? What's England doing? What's the World Health Association doing? And ironically, not that this may make everybody feel more comfortable, but the World Health Organization, for instance, their standard for PFOA is 4,000 parts per trillion, and PFOS is 400. And usually those are pretty conservative numbers for the World Health Organization. England does, at 1,000. They start looking at things at 1,000 parts per trillion.
Are we talking about water concentration? Are we comparing
Talking
apples to apples?
Yes, the standards that the U.S. has versus European nations for the same parameters. So I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but those are things that, the state of New Hampshire is not going to go higher than the EPA drinking water standard of 70 parts per trillion. Clearly they're going to go something lower, but I
That's
don't...
just because they can't.
And who knows? I mean, the toxicology studies are what should be driving the train. And I think I just wanted you to be aware that there's a lot of, there's a lot of information out there that needs to be processed. And I know, having talked to the commissioner just in the recent past, is that there will be a recommended standard sometime in December. And then the rulemaking will begin in earnest. And that will begin in January, and it'll take some time before that happens. And then there'll be a period of time for everybody to have to address whatever the standard they decide to do. But I think, one of the things I'm happy about, or at least seeing, is that on this data, there's pretty stable numbers for the last couple of years. We're not seeing increased levels. The point that Wolf made, and I think is important that we need to think about, is that the groundwater management zone has not been defined for TCI in the industrial park. And that is what we need to, in my view, as a commission and as an MVD, is to push hard on DES, not to let that slide. Because once that GMZ is defined, that is, who's responsible for what contamination, it has a bearing on how it affects you, because the responsible party, if the GMZ is expanded to include you, which it may or may not, either from, however that works, will have an impact on who is responsible for, obviously, paying for that. I think that the more likely candidate, and at least in the early part, and maybe the state disagrees with us, is that the likely candidate is aerial deposition. But this is one of the things we want to take a hard, look at, because There's also, I don't think it's inappropriate for, especially if the Witch's Brook is contaminated for 2.5 miles at basically the same level. That means there's some uniform or relatively uniform amount that's going into that system. We need to get back to that because that may be another discussion we have down the road. This study that I'm talking about will not define the responsible party. It just is a small piece. That's going to be, the state and their consultants are going to spend millions and millions of dollars figuring that out. But what we don't want to do is be sitting here to this time next year and saying there's no further understanding of who's responsible at the where their level, who's responsible for that contamination. Because I'm of the opinion, right, at the preliminary basis that there's some likelihood that the industrial park, through their septic systems, are leaching into the Witch's Brook. And that may be the source of
It definitely looks like there's two distinct, clear sources if you look on a map of...
Up there.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no question.
So...
and
now
how do they interact and how do they interchange and
Yeah.
who's responsible for what? That's going to be difficult questions. But Brandon, I was surprised, and I think you all were surprised, when we sat here and I specifically asked him the question, where are we on the GMZ? And he said, we haven't really begun yet.
Right. You said it was like
and they've been working on
years
that
away, basically.
They've spent well over $1 million, or it was probably in the millions of dollars in investigations up there. And for us not to have a GMZ up there, to me, is, it's disappointing. So we need, I want to encourage all of us to continue to put some pressure on that, and I will continue to do so as well as I can. But those are the two things I was asked to speak on. That's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address anything.
I think I remember reading in this application that it was to determine if it's aerial deposition or, ground sources.
And/or, yeah.
Now, does that mean either or? Or is you
Yeah,
just thinking it's one or the other, but it could be both?
It
obviously.
could be both.
All right. Okay.
And we're just trying to get a better understanding of it if it helps us. But I want to also look at when we're putting some probes in the monitoring wells out there to see how far out we reach with daily operations of 7 and 8. So if we have water level probes out in the perimeter and we have some over on the other property, and once we pump those wells, we should see if we're seeing impacts. Further out. I think it'll only serve to confirm what we had modeled in 1999 and 2000.
How long are you pumping the wells?
So those, we'd use them under the operation scheme that they're using right now, so they'd be pumping every day, and I don't know how many hours a week. We could set that. It could be 10 hours a day if we wanted to.
What would be the, how would I put it? I lost it.
That's all right, but I think, Tony, what you're saying is that we would, we want to be able to stress the wells enough to see an impact or not an impact in the monitoring wells, so we can identify the contribution area, from those uses.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're talking about putting in monitoring probes for 30 to 60 days, I think. I can't remember what he ended up putting in there, but what we put in there. But so that's the game plan. And if that isn't sufficient, then we'll come back. We'll have to do a longer term pumping test, an actual physical test. We didn't have enough money to do it.
Has other districts done this type of program?
Yeah, so we're involved in the city of Dover and Portsmouth, and it seems like every community that's been adversely impaired, and yeah, this is a similar approach. So, but they don't have the peat that you have. I mean, they don't have that kind of natural buffer. It'd be wonderful if you end up having a pre-treatment by nature.
Tammy, your proposal is kind of, this is something to do with what the DES was talking about, with the issues in the vicinity of well 7 and 8 when they were down here.
Yes,
And,
yes.
And so the question is, why aren't they doing this? I mean, if we get the grant, we pay $10,000 and somebody else get $20,000 from someone else, but why wouldn't they?
That's a really good question.
Why wouldn't they be doing
Yeah,
this?
no, that's a really good question, and I think the answer is that their priorities aren't necessarily
Our priorities.
your priorities.
It's funny they're concerned about our pumping affecting downstream, but they're not concerned about our pumping affecting us,
Right.
what's coming to our wells.
Or, or what's happening up gradient, how do we get that to,
There's not even enough gradient sample, source,
Yeah.
surface water sample. We
Right.
don't even know if that 40 is coming.
I think that's pretty important, because I'm familiar with the area upstream.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of survey work up there, and I think canoeing upstream to get those samples would be
Yeah.
really important.
Well, and one of the things we're going to be faced with is it depends on when the Governor's Council approves it. And we may not be in a position where we can actually
Do
paddle
that.
up there.
It's skate up there.
So we may, we may decide, and this is something that you can talk about internally, or we might have enough funding available that we can just go ahead and take those samples before the big freeze comes in. And that would be something we could talk about in terms of our budgets, what we have now, so.
Who's coordinating with DES on that behalf? Is that you for the most part? or-
Yeah. My name is on it, so they'll be calling me first, but then I would, process it to Ron, or,
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Jamie a question on some of the things he just said?
Questions from the public is after the meeting.
I have a question too, regarding what he said.
I do as well.
if they get right, I'm leaving. If they write them down, I could possibly.
I'd rather hear it from you if it's possible for you to stay.
I'll leave it to you, Jimmy, if you want to answer any questions.
Well, if they're brief, I mean, I don't have, I can take a quick question.
I would like to see that. I think these people came here, and,
Sure.
Jamie, you mentioned the European level was quite high. Was that using the Rhine model?
I don't know.
Okay, because that's very important, because that covers every known PFAS within the known quantities that we're talking about.
Right, and
So it would be high as opposed to the 537. Would you agree with that?
Not that high, but yes, I would agree that I know that some of those numbers are for total.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the Rhine model,
You're talking about total 14, 23?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I do know those numbers for total, right? No, well, the ones I gave you were for PFO and PFAS, and there's a separate standard for additional.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that study if you can find it. You're quoting the WHO. If you have proof of that, I'd like to see
you just
it.
can get it on any website.
I've been Googling it right now, and I have not found anything that states the numbers that you are stating.
Okay. We can send
So
that
if you
to
could...
I'll send you the link, or
Yeah,
I'll send them the link.
If you could send them the
yeah.
link and they could give it to us, that'd be great.
Sure.
So my question to you was, you're talking about pretreatment by nature with the peat. It's all bioaccumulative. So if you have, we'll just say a sponge, you have a sponge that's full of these chemicals and you just leave it sitting there, it's not going away. So what do you profess to do about this big sponge that's sitting there that is going to stay full of these chemicals and is not going away? So
Well,
how can you say pretreatment by nature?
Well, no, here, I'm not suggesting that that's sufficient. I want to make sure that you understand. I'm just, as a scientist, saying we have surface water that has 45 parts per trillion. We have groundwater that is being withdrawn proximal to that surface water. We know that that surface water is our recharge source. So why are we getting why aren't we getting 45 parts per trillion if our surface water is our recharge source? We know that the way we treat PFO and PFAS is through carbon. Peat is carbon. So the possibility is that we're actually getting some natural treatment. Is that the long-term solution? It's not a solution. It's just helpful. It may be potentially helpful for you all that we're not getting 45 or 50 parts per trillion. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, nature, we get natural filtration all the time. That's why we don't have any bacteria in the water.
No, I understand that, but you're going to, for all intents and purposes, you're going to leave that sponge there. So you're saying 45 up here, then you have this sponge, and you're saying 25 down here.
Because
But Kathy, I'm sorry to maybe
Go ahead.
interfere, but I think we have to distinguish between the responsibility of DES and the responsibility of MVD. I hear what you're saying
Yeah, I'm
from
just
a
going by
global
what he
standpoint,
said.
right?
Right.
But he's here to, you know, to advise us on the behavior of how it affects our water.
Okay.
So while I agree with you that this is
Yeah.
a general question that should be asked, I'm not sure if that's the right.
Okay,
area
then
here.
I just have, you made the statement, you're basing everything on 35 PPT, which is half of, you keep saying half.
No.
Because,
I'm not
wait a
making-
minute, let me finish, please. Because right now, the standard is set at 70.
Right.
You're totally negating the ATSDR report, which says that 70 is like 7 to 10 times higher than what it's supposed to be, when the ATSDR is recommending 7 to 10. What are you going to suggest to these guys when the ATSDR or EPA or DES says, no, we're going down to this level?
I'm not making any recommendations. I'm just telling you that the levels that we are experiencing in the wells today are less than half of the 70 parts per trillion. They're less than 35. They're at 20, 25 parts per trillion. The only purpose is that I want, you know, I think it's important for the community to understand, because if I'm sitting in your shoes, and I have in other cases, I'd like to know where are we relative to the standard that's currently in place. The standard that we are all operating, whether it's PFAS, arsenic, iron, chloride, sodium, radon gas, whatever that is, where are we relative to the standard? And so for the benefit of the people that are here, you're less than half of the standard for those 4 wells.
The
that are
current
being-
standard.
The current standard, correct. So if the standard comes out at 10, then you'll be twice what the standard is, and we'll be here talking about treatment. We don't have any impact on what the standard's going to be. Well, we don't, unless it becomes, if it's a scientifically based decision, then it will be based on science.
That's what the ATSDR reports are.
Right.
They're based solely
So
on
we'll,
science.
right. So we'll, you know, that's in the hands of those toxicologists and those individuals who can make that decision. That's certainly not me.
Okay, I just have one more
And
question.
I won't
for
make
you.
any recommendation on that because I don't have the skill set to do so.
You were talking earlier, and you were giving these guys financial advice. I'm just wondering why you, as an engineer, would be giving them financial advice. You're talking about below 20,000, 10,000.
That was the grant.
That's
That was a great.
Oh, that's just the grant.
Those were cost
application.
estimates.
We had to provide a cost estimate for that. It's not a recommendation, it's not financial advice, it's just, that's what
The grant limit was 20,000.
was 20,000. And the
You
cost of this
couldn't
study was
match.
30,000. And yet-
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Did you go for 20,000 or did you go for 10?
30.
30, thank you. My question is, I'm not privy to who you are,
Okay.
and so I was just wondering, what is your role and who are you?
Okay,
from
so,
St. Patrick?
yeah, good question. I'm Jamie Emery, and I'm
Thank
president of Emery and Garrett Groundwater Investigations, and now we have merged with a company called GZA recently in the past year, but I have worked with the MVD for 20-plus years, providing them support and help in groundwater consulting, as we do for most of the municipalities that develop and use groundwater in the state.
And so you're usually here at the meetings?
When I'm asked to.
When there's a topic
Only
pertinent.
when I'm asked.
Yeah.
And so I was asked tonight to address these.
I have a question about Witches Brook. I know you were wondering if there was like dual aerial deposition, and
Right.
what is the distance? Because I'm not familiar with Witches Brook. What is the distance between St. Cobain and Witches Brook, and then also TCI and Witches Brook?
Well, it's, you know, I don't have that in the top of my head, but it's a couple miles to St. Cobain, and it's, you know, several thousand feet to the TCI.
I know there's specific footprints regarding these, 2 places. Has that been identified at all? With
So,
the PFAS?
with TCI and in the industrial park, that's
In
the...
St. Cobain. I
Well,
was just
St.
wondering
Cobain,
the
yes, they
footprint
have
is
put
shown.
they put a footprint out, but, you know, and it does include this area.
Do you know what I'm talking about, like the specific chemicals?
The fingerprint?
Yeah.
That's it, thank you.
Yeah, no, that has not, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a fingerprint of what's been done
Okay.
here. But they are finding interesting things, the things they expected to see at St. Cobain they're not seeing. And certain things they are seeing that they weren't, you know, expecting. So that data is starting to come forward now, and I'm kind of interested in what the ES presents.
Last question on the back over there.
Hi, Jamie, it's Gail Shaw. Regarding the peat,
that you speak about, has your business or any business you're aware of tested that peat to determine how much PFAS is being currently absorbed
Yeah, no,
and accumulated? How, you know what I'm trying to say?
yeah, no, it's a good question, and that's what this study is trying to address. I've looked in the literature, and I have not found anything of any significance about peat and how peat addresses PFOA.
But has your business tested the actual peat
Here, no.
to determine what the PFAS levels may be at in that peat?
No, that's what this study's about.
And what study is that again?
That's the one we were discussing, the application that we put in for the $30,000.
Okay,
We're trying to address that.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for saying.
Thanks, Jamie, appreciate that.
Have a good holiday.
Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving to you all.
Any extra meat, bring it to my house, please.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll get back to you.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 2, Water Commissioners discuss with Underwood Engineers. Are they here?
Yes.
There's Underwood Engineers.
Which was in the hall.
You disappeared out of nowhere.
There was a chair out there. And there's no parking spots available either, so I'm out on the street. I don't know if that's okay.
Would you introduce
If the
yourself?
car's not there, you know we made a mistake.
Yeah, I guess so. Yes, I am Michael Metcalf from Underwood Engineers.
And you're here to discuss,
I am here to discuss whatever you want me to discuss. I believe you had questions, I think, on the PFAS evaluation of treatments of wells 2, 3, 7, and 8, and there were some questions on the rate study. So unless there was something else I'm not aware of, I'm here to try and provide those answers. And Jill was good enough to send those questions to us, so I was able to look at some, as well as get answers from Keith Pratt on the rate study, because that's not something that I work on, but I have answers to your questions. But I don't know how you want to proceed, if you want to just go through the questions that I had, or if you have other things.
I did, and Jill was kind enough to email them to Mike, so maybe, but I did have a few more.
Yeah.
Why don't we just flip through the report if we can?
Yeah,
If
just
that's all right?
however you want to do it is fine with me.
All right. I saw on page 2, the third paragraph down, it talks about wells 2, 3, 7, and 8 have PFOS present, but at levels below 70.
Are we on the rate study or
We're on the
feasibility?
PFAS feasibility cost study.
The one from October 19th?
Yes. So I'm on the third paragraph of page 2. There's numbers in here, levels are below 70 PPT regulatory standards, parentheses, 8 to 48 combined. What are those, just the lowest and the highest that we've,
Yeah, the levels below the 7 probable standards, I believe that is just
The 8 to
reflection of
48.
that's the range of from 8 is the lowest combination of PFOA and PFOS to 48 is the highest. That would be my guess
okay.
as to those. I believe that's what that is.
I just wasn't sure if those were the actual numbers or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I think I had a question on page 4. It says in there about better removal of short chain PFS with resin, but then in the resin media section on page 6, I think it says the opposite.
Yeah, it doesn't say the opposite, but and I see the point of confusion is, and pardon me, if you can't tell, I've got a cold.
Yeah.
I didn't even go to work today, so I'm trying not to.
Oh, man.
I'm trying not to spread this around, but I'm pointing at you guys, so sorry about that. So yeah, it's pretty well established that resin is better at removing short chain PFAS than GAC, and that statement, about quicker breakthrough of PB NA is true for resin, but what's not said there, it's more true for GAC. So
I mean, it would break through GAC faster than it's going to break through the resin. And on that point, one of the things that I think we're going to have to go back and look at here is the times that we got from the manufacturer's reps. So we say, okay, Calgon, we need a GAC treatment system based on this water quality, and we give them your water quality and all the data that they ask for, and they say, okay, based on that, our material should last 2 years, and that's what we stated in here. And then the resin guys, we talk to them, and they say, well, based on trying to get to non-detect on everything you're trying to get to non-detect on, ours will last maybe 1.5 years, but if you got PFBA, that breaks through faster, and that might be 4 to 6 months. I think the claim of 2 years by Calgon may be optimistic, and we may need to go back and recalculate some of the O&M costs as a result of that. It doesn't affect the capital costs, but the O&M cost, the biggest part of the O&M cost is the replacement of either the GAC or the resin. Okay, so that's something I want to get right out there that we want to take a closer look at, because we've been checking on the actual life of GAC. So I've been in touch with Mystic Falls, we've been over at Pease and talked about when they've replaced, so we're starting to get a better handle on what the claims are and what the actual life is till change out.
So I think this study is for removing not the 39 compounds, but 14 of them?
It was basically, you started measuring around 36 compounds, I forget the actual number, but it went down to 14. 14 is what has been measured, and so that's what was recorded with all the DES data. So those were the 14 compounds that we keyed on, and looking at saying, when we sent those out to the manufacturer's reps, we said, we got to get these 14 compounds to below detection.
Right. So it's not just PFOA, PFOS.
It's not just PFOA.
Nor the additional 2 that DES is looking at. It's more than that.
Right. That's what we gave them, was those 14 compounds that have actually been measured in MBB water.
All right,
and they were measuring more before that, and they stopped. And it's our understanding that they stopped measuring those other ones because they weren't finding them.
Okay. All right. On what is it, page 5, it talks about rapid scale, small column testing. Is that what's going on at wells 4 and 5 right now?
Yeah, so that's the test.
So that'd be the same thing that you would be doing on the other?
Yeah, the comment here, and I saw your question, the comment here was really just to point out that for each water, there are different factors that affect it. So we recommend rapid scale, small column testing, or accelerated column testing, same idea, which is what they do to try and get to breakthrough much faster on a small column of GAC. So within a matter of weeks, let's say, you can find out, or at least get an analysis that says, based on this water quality that we just ran through here, we think this media will last for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's going to be. And we'll also get an idea of what it's actually removing of those compounds that they're measuring. So what we're pointing out in this report is you ought to do that rather than just assume. But in terms of actual tests taking place, the only one is the one on 4 and 5 right now as part of the final design.
Right. So if we wanted to pursue this further, that would be something we would do.
That would be something to do, yeah. And just on that score, those water samples arrived there today, and they actually started. So those tests are now in progress with the lab on wells 4 and 5.
Good. That's good to know. You talk about backwash rates. Is that only the one-time backwashing at the beginning of the system?
Yes, both GAC and resin, and again, we're talking to the manufacturers, say they only need to be backwashed once when you first put it online. And with GAC, that's more to get rid of the fines, because just as a nature of the process, there are fine materials, and if you started running that water through without doing that, you'd get dark colored water because of that material going into the water. And also with resin, there's somewhat there's a sort of stratification of beads, so you got to lift the whole thing up and then let it settle down and stratify the way that it's intended to be. But once you've done that, you don't do it again until you replace that material.
And it'd be both cases, resin or carbon would be downflow, correct? Is that what you...
No, the backwashing would be upflow.
No, but yeah, the service flows down, so the
Service flows down,
backwash
backwashes up, because the whole idea in backwashing is to do what they call fluidize the bed and get the particles, expanded, so
Yeah.
the water is running between those particles.
But that's not a concern, is compacting the bed with the continuous downflow after it's originally put in service?
They say not.
Yeah.
They
Well,
say-
we have the option of backwashing.
Yeah.
What I'm familiar with carbon is you
Yeah.
have to backwash it to decompact the bed periodically.
Yeah.
Because you'll get more head loss as the flow keeps compressing
Mhm.
the media.
We
I just
have
didn't
that.
know.
We have that option. I mean,
Right.
we will have that option to backwash. With 4 and 5, and with any treatment plant you're going to do, you want the ability to backwash those. Right
Right.
now, they say you only need to do it that one time.
Okay.
If you needed it, if we determined we needed it more, we could do it.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I just had a question. It says, I forget what page, I didn't write it down, but about TOC testing. I think that's probably along with rapid scale tests, is we'd have to just, we don't have any TOC tests on any other wells besides 4 and 5, I think, right?
We have, and I don't know what they are,
Okay,
but we
I
have a
didn't
couple
know.
of data points on well 7 and 8 that we did as part of the pilot testing for the iron manganese removal. So we got TOC at that time. I wasn't aware of that, but Lynette wrote down,
good.
we have those 2 data points, so I haven't seen those. And we will have, they were doing the TOC tests on well 4 and 5 as we speak when we talked to them today at the lab. So we'll have those data points, but we don't have any on 2 or 3 that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I think I did find the answer about if the costs on page 24 include design fees. I believe they do.
They do. All of those costs include we've just got it in, there's a 25% of whatever the construction cost is for engineering, and that's
Right.
design and construction phase engineering.
Okay. Is that a typical industry standard?
Yeah. I mean, well, it depends on, I mean, if you talk to one engineer, they might use 20. If you talk to another engineer, they might use 25. You talk to another, they might use nothing and figure it out individually for each project.
Yeah.
And then there are certain standards where you can use like up to 46%. That includes engineering, contingent, and some other things, legal,
Yeah.
administrative, ASCE has guidelines. We generally use, 20 to 25%.
Okay.
And it's a budget number now, and then when we get to the actual design, we go through the process of writing out the scope, the detailed scope, and costing that out, and then hopefully it is closer to within the 25%.
Okay, that's good. I had another question. I know that your treatment proposal called out GAC resin and/or advanced oxidation, so I guess it's either resin and/or. I didn't know if it was the second one and/or the third one.
It was and/or the advanced oxidation, and I saw that written in, and it probably could have been left out. But we looked at that in the May 2016 report, just briefly, when we did the first initial evaluation of when this stuff showed up. All of a sudden we have PFOA at that time. How do you treat this stuff? So we looked into several treatment technologies, including advanced oxidation, and what they were reporting was that it was getting less than 10% removal of PFOA, and I think something like less than 10% of PFOS. It's if you look at that May 2016 report that we did, there's a table in there that has several treatment technologies with
So
what.
it's not really viable.
Yeah, and then and looking at what's been done and what's being done out there right now for treatment for that, no one is using advanced oxidation. That is, in that you had 1,4-dioxane, advanced oxidation plus peroxide is becoming the treatment of choice, but not for PFAS.
And then my last comment on this would just be, I don't know if it makes sense to, I know you talked about there could be other resins or medias to consider, and I think the zeolite might fall into that.
Yeah, zeolite may, I mean, we've heard, I think I heard Jeff's voice here, so, we've heard, claims that it's very good and can do this. And at this point, we don't have actual data or treatment systems or anything to look at to say, but if there is, by all means, You know, if it's another weapon in the toolbox, it should be looked at. So I don't have any problem with saying, you know, adding that into the report to say this could be a future option.
Okay. I mean, I saw like a little other thing, if you want to make a note on page 9, the backwash flow rate. What is this? I think it was supposed to say,
960 to 1350, is that?
no, yeah, that's okay. I was thinking it was per square foot, but that's not, that's actual flow.
That's an actual gallon per minute, yeah. That'd be a high one per square foot.
Yeah, it would. I think that's all the comments I have on this report.
Okay.
Anybody else?
And like I said, we're going to be re-looking at those O&M costs, you know, and based on the life that we were getting, we want to. Right now, we're saying that 2 years on carbon, and what we're hearing and seeing is that's optimistic. So. Yeah, Chip.
Is the is 4-dioxane one of the 14 compounds that'll be you'll be treating?
No, 1,4-dioxane is a separate contaminant associated with usually gasoline, or you had it at well 6, around well 6 from the spill from Merrimack Metals.
Yeah.
And actually that was the one that finally kind of put the kibosh on well 6, because once that started showing up with a potential MCL of 0.35 micrograms per liter, the board said, okay, we're done with well 6 for now.
Right.
I just want to point out a typo on figure 12. You want to make a note. There's a note on figure 12 that says to refer to figure 12.
Okay.
So it might be the previous figure in there. I think you want to refer to.
Note. Provide. All right. And as I read through it too, I picked up another typo or two.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Some little things, but we'll
It's a very, obscure thing you might not have seen. That's all I'm using to put it out. I think that was the only comment I had.
Okay.
The last one.
Okay.
I'm good with that report. Anybody else?
I'm all set.
And I'll do my best on this one. I mean, I didn't do this report, but. So again, I have a list of questions that you sent, but I don't know how, go at it however you would like to go at it.
Go through it.
All right, I'll go through it again.
I know I have one, but I think you have it partially covered, so go ahead.
Well, we could probably just go through this email if that's what you have in front of you.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
So the first one being
Page 4.
Page 4, all our costs in options BCB were based on GAC treatment of resin or both, and they're all based on GAC.
Okay.
And then, and I'll keep going through these unless you need more clarification or you have additional questions. You said, is the $840,000 recommended capital reserve contribution included in the rate study? And Keith's answer is no, that's not included in the rate update. And that's the amount that's being put aside as per asset management reports for the next, 100 years or so. That's not in the rates. Right.
So that's assuming we're not making those contributions to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, right. That would have to be coming from somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Option B and D, annual O&M don't match the PFAS report, should they? Keith says there's a small error there. Using the average, the O&M should be 10,000 less for each option. So he did double check the rate model when he saw your question on that, and it doesn't make a noticeable difference in the rate recommendations, but we do need to adjust that.
Okay.
Okay.
But what I didn't see, and maybe I missed it, is the consideration that after 45 years, the operating cost, O&M cost for the...
are not included, and that's a very good point, and Keith wanted me to make that point if it wasn't brought up, that right now, there is no O&M cost carried for wells 4 and 5.
In the rate study.
In the rate study.
So we basically would have to consider another increase of the rate 4 to 5 years after the plan comes live.
Right, because right now, under the agreement with St. Gobain, as you know, they're covering O&M for 5 years, based on our estimate of what it costs per year.
We're hoping that's going to cover more than 5 years.
Right, we're hoping that we
Right, but
were
we
low.
plan for 4 because we don't know.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. So, and I guess this was being looked at as an every 5-year study, so it wasn't in there for this one, I believe, was the logic on that.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
But Keith wanted to acknowledge that that's not in there because that's already included in the money that you have from St. Gobain, which may last 4 years, may last 5 years, may last longer, may last less if we find out that
Right.
it costs more to run that place, in which case it should be included in the rate model, but that's the assumption.
Any opinions on that? Should we run that?
What else do you need?
What's that?
I think if it's beyond,
If it's beyond 5 years.
I think we'll have another opportunity to capture that
Okay.
in the next.
Capture what?
The O&M cost for
Oh,
plan,
okay.
plan for the treatment plan for 4 and 5,
All right.
after 45 years, 6 years possibly.
Okay, so I'll reiterate that you guys are aware of that and that it's a concern, but right now we're going based on the fact that we can catch that in the next update.
The next cycle.
Yeah, okay. Let's see.
Number 4, I think.
Number 4, confirm all rates subsequent years. It was a long question. From 2020, 21, 22, 24
Yeah.
are year-to-year increases and not based on today's rate, and the answer is that that's correct. The rates are compounded.
Right, so I guess I want, and nobody's got anything in front of them anyway, but when this thing is published for someone to see, you know, we're talking about, you know, for each of these costs, it's broken down on page 5, where it says if option D is selected, 10% of the rate impact is due to wells 7 and 8 treatment, and then 17% is due to wells 2 and 3 treatment. Those percentages are a bit higher because it doesn't factor in a 2% rate increase recommended for 2020, and then an 11% rate increase recommended for 2021. And those 2 rate increases are just to basically keep what we have now.
Right.
So you would have already been increasing the rates by 2% and then again by 11%. Then you would be doing a 10% increase on those increased rates. So if you do the numbers out, it's not significant when you add in the 2 and 11%. But it does actually end up being more than the numbers presented here. They're cumulative. I guess the way I'm trying to word it is they're not looking at just today's rate of 195 per 100 cubic feet. They're looking at the adjustments going.
The adjustment on the future rate, which is already more, right? That's what?
Yeah, and the only reason I bring it up because I think it's important that we, you know, present it to the public. I don't know if you want to put a sentence in here that says something about that. I don't know what we need to do about it, but I think we need to explain that to people so they're not just looking at this and thinking, oh, all right, well, it's 38% increase on today's rate, because it's actually more than that when you factor in
Okay, yeah, I get
baseline
it.
increases.
Sure, we can do something.
I don't want to be perceived as hiding numbers or anything.
Oh, yeah, no, we
So-
want to be transparent.
Right. I had one question too. I don't know if it's on here. I don't know if and maybe you can't answer it, but in table 4 on page 5, it talks about the 2024 reserve fund balance. It's 4.6 million, and I know Keith tried to keep that steady, I believe was his goal when he came up with these rate increases. You'll see the 4.6 is always what's maintained in the reserve fund balance.
I see it just carrying through on all the options, yeah.
Right, and I didn't know if, like, what's the significance of that number? Is that like a certain rule of thumb or a certain percentage that we are typical water companies carry? I don't know.
You're right, I can't answer that.
I didn't know if you, sorry to put you on the spot, but I didn't.
I would if I knew, and I don't know if Michelle has any idea about, if that's all right to refer to her out in the hallway.
If I can comment, there are a lot of competing interpretations of what our capital reserve funds, as well as our fund balance should be. And that's something I've been accumulating information on for all of us when we sit down for a work session on the CIP and the rate study to see where we should be and to decide where we want to be with the information that's out there.
In today's dollars, that number is what? That's the $5.7 million number, that with the current number?
It's part of it, yeah, it's part of it.
That's not the full $8 million number, right?
Full 8?
Well,
No. We're, right now, capital reserves,
5.7 or something,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
I just want to make sure we're not going
capital
from 8
reserves are at
to 4, you know?
5.7 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're at 5.7 right now, and part of what we want to do when we have a work session is to evaluate
Where we want to
the
be.
recommendations, and they do vary quite a bit. There's some information from the American Water Works Association, the New Hampshire Municipal Association, but they do have different interpretations of what it should be.
Must
So
be
it's
based
something-
on percentages of revenues or assets or something, I'm guessing.
They all vary. So that's
Okay.
something that we do need to look at and make that decision for both the capital reserve and also for our fund balance for general operations.
So if this is part of the rate study, that number, shouldn't that increase with inflation as well? Because we're talking about 2024 and it's still 4.6 million, which in effect now is 20% less than it was 2018, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
That's why I was,
Yeah.
yeah.
so
let
if
them know.
if this actually impacts the rate study,
Yeah, we definitely need to
probably
fold
need
in the
to
CIP
run the
plan.
scenario of what this should be based on whatever metrics you're applying there, right? Down the road.
Yeah, but I
Otherwise
don't want
we're-
that to hold this report up, right? Because she won't have her answer on that for, I don't know when.
It's something that collectively I was looking for all of us to evaluate and make a determination of what, setting our goal for fund balance, which we need to do as well as
Well, there may,
the CIP.
excuse me.
Sure.
There may be, I mean, you were asking, is there an AWWA, guidance on this, and there may well be. So there may be a quicker answer
Right.
to that as opposed to,
Well, even if it's
wait on it.
even if we just apply the same inflation, percentage that we applied to the budget, then at least we have at least some kind of ballpark rate.
Yeah, so what I'm taking back is that we're going to look at the reserve balance, and we have the question on what it should be, and then should it increase in the same way with inflation?
Right.
So,
I think that would make sense.
okay. Let's see, so does that answer number 4 question that you had?
Yes.
Okay. Number 5, need a footnote to explain what 14B, C, B, and A refer to based on the tables, and we said, yep, yeah, we'll add that note.
Okay.
Okay. Appendix 9, what was the new well account, 30735 for $835,000 with debt issued in 2011, maturing in 2026, well 7 or 8 maybe. I believe that was well 6. Yeah, that was well 6. Yeah, that goes back to the blending option. So this was before iron and manganese treatment for well 7 and 8, and high sodium and chloride levels in well 6, and before 1,4-dioxane shows up in well 6.
That was in well 6 too? I didn't know that. Yeah.
1,4-dioxane is in well 6, yeah.
That's why we decided not to blend.
Yeah, so the blending, the idea was to blend the high sodium and chloride water from well 6 with the low sodium and chloride water from well 7 and 8, the high iron and manganese from 7 and 8 with the low sodium and chloride, low
iron and manganese.
Thank you, low iron and manganese in well 6. And we actually did that and did a pilot study, and it came out pretty good. I mean, the manganese was just above the secondary limit, as I recall, and we got iron down below the secondary limit. Sodium and chloride, we got much better than they were. But the concern was always that well 6 had been shut down due to volatile organic contamination. So how much could you pump well 6 without pulling anything in? And that was the question, which was that well, which originally was a 1,500 gallon per minute well, we were pumping it closer to 600 gallons a minute, based on the recharge recommendations that we had from Emory and Garrett. And it was working until 1,4-dioxane reared its ugly head, and when that
just
showed
can't
up,
catch a break with anything, can
yeah,
we?
so that showed up in a monitoring well. And so then we went, okay, time out, and Emory and Garrett came down and ran a 90-day test. I believe it was about 90 days.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that test, and with constant testing for 1,4-dioxane until it finally did show up in well 6, and then the commissioner pulled the plug on that.
So,
anyways, that money was repurposed, I believe.
Yes.
but this says there's a debt maturing in 2026. We're still paying for that new well, even though we're not using it. Is that?
I think the funds were used for something else.
We have, the funds are still there,
Oh, okay.
so it's been used, part of it was used for that. And then whatever was remaining, when we decided to pull the plug, it went to the next, it was the next annual meeting, went before the voters, and it was repurposed to be used at a new well site. So we could essentially use that money for Mitchell Woods.
Oh.
I mean, it was options. We could pay back the bond, and then we'd have to go for a new bond, or we can just keep paying on it and then just repurpose it, knowing that we had these other projects coming up, so.
So that 835 has or has not been spent?
Where, I think, is Michelle still here?
Yes.
We're what, around 600,000?
In the bank balances list, it is the account 10150, develop new production well, with a balance of 646,000 in unspent bond proceeds.
Okay. All right. I thought we were paid this, and we're paying bond on it every year, and we can't use that well anymore. That's what I was trying to find
the
out.
bond has been repurposed, so we are allowed to use it for the development.
All right, so we're not paying a bond, but we haven't spent the money.
That's right.
Okay.
The money that was spent was going
I'm a little
towards that.
slow on the accounting stuff, so just give me catching up.
Yeah, I think it was spent on that 90-day test, on a design, of the
All right.
blending. We got it, we got it to almost the finish line before the 1,4-dioxane showed up.
Okay. So if you're saying we got 600 left and we had 840, we spent a couple hundred plus or minus 1,000 getting the information to but we're not using it anymore. But
Correct.
okay. All right. Thanks.
Let's see, appendix table 10, I assume everything listed on the CIP is included in the rate study.
Well, let's accept the.
Except the 700, so the 840, and that's what Keith said. Everything but the 840, and then there was 10,000 for a new well engineering evaluation that got pulled out. And actually Keith and Megan, who were working on it, kind of did the look at each other and say, did that get pulled out? Yeah, that did get pulled out. Do we know why it got pulled out? No,
Yeah.
So it may be something that should have been kept in there, but it's something that we need to check with you and see if that's something you want us to have in there.
I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally what that is, if it's a new well, maybe that's preliminary design money. I don't know. I'm only going on the answer that was given to me, but it sounds like unless it's something that you want to add in, it does not need to be added in.
And that kind of dovetails to the next question I had on table 10 is the 1.5 million for new well site installation. And my question was just what would be the impact on our total well capacity if we deferred that 1.5 million from Mitchell Woods to a later date? I think we had discussed the source capacity before, and recognizing wells 4 and 5 are off right now, and our interconnection with Pennachuck if we need it on an emergency basis. I'm looking at this and saying if we got some considerable expenditures coming up, if we want to go ahead with PFAS treatment, does it also make sense to add another 1.5 million in, which is already in the CIP for a new well? I'm not sure if that's something that's critical right now or something that can be deferred maybe later so that we can move the PFAS treatment up.
And I'm going to look over at Ron when I answer this, because, I mean, my answer on this is that if we get well 4 and 5 back online, and that treatment is up and running and those sources are available, then Mitchell Woods is not a critical thing that we have to get done right away. But, you know, you're the guy that's dealing with meeting.
I mean, it's always prudent to have as
Yeah.
much source capacity as you can, but
Yeah.
that's what cost and what,
It would be that much less than we would be pulling from the Pennachuck connection.
yeah.
In peak times though.
Well, that's when we pretty much use the Pennachuck connections is during the peak.
I just want to mention
times,
that.
Yeah. So it would be that much less that we would pull from there. It is a source that has no PFAS in it, so it's a very good source, an emergency source. And it can be run not just during peak times, it could be run if there was an issue, we could run it at any time if needed. If we had a well that was down, it could run for a short period, and then once we can make a repair, it could be come back on. So I'd like to see it stay there, but I mean, that's certainly something we can.
Yeah. I mean,
Because we had also said that, you know, if we would go with artificial recharge after all, that would serve the purpose of providing actual more production rate than Mitchell Woods would, right? If I recall right.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I think it was
Yeah, it would be
If
more.
the projections kick in, plus it would help dilute the filtering, or, you know, the water that runs through the filters, possibly prolonging the life of the filters, right? So with that argument, it would be actually beneficial to possibly, if the study shows that AR is possible and makes sense and there's no contamination on the ground,
Yeah.
and so on.
Oh, that's-
I know.
I mean, we certainly,
Ding, ding, ding.
yeah, I mean,
Right?
yeah, and I guess the CIP is that's stuff we can move
Right.
around as, you know, if it's not right now that we need to do it, we can certainly bump it out a few years and still leave it in there as a holding, you know, to be like a placeholder, but we can move it around.
Has that actual well been tested for PFAS? I have no idea. That Mitchell Woods?
It has, yeah. I think
Oh, okay.
that was one, and I don't remember, well, it was, I don't remember when it was tested. I know it had been tested and it did come back with, there was no PFAS, no levels.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts is, I know wells 4 and 5 are down right now, coming back in, 2020, I think.
Yeah.
We spent $64,000 buying water from Pennachuck this past, is this since July, or is this the whole summer? This is since July, because this is this
Right.
budget cycle.
Yeah.
And I just look at a $1.5 million number, and knowing we're going to get wells 4 and 5 back online, which puts out a lot more than this new Mitchell Woods well.
Yeah.
And we still have the interconnection. I think wells, once 4 and 5 go back online, it's going to make up for the water that we're buying from Pennachuck. I just don't see the need to have that source right now. And it's not that I don't want an additional source, it's that the 1.5 million, I think, can be repurposed to something else that is probably a lot higher on everyone's priority list, speaking from my own self. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But if I had my preference, I would like to basically push that further back in the capital improvement plan personally. Maybe 2-3 years further than what it is now, because right now it's in 2021, and I would be thinking about maybe pushing that out maybe further, 2024 perhaps. I don't know if...
Did you say that was factored into the rate?
Yeah, pretty
Yes,
sure it is.
yes, it is.
So, and it's a 5-year increment, so you'd want to go actually further, you'd want to go at least 5 years out, so it's off.
Yeah,
It would,
so it's off this rate study.
Yeah, it says that the 1.5 million is included in the rates. And it's coming from the proceeds for the remaining bond. The balance was shown to come from reserves.
I figured it was because he said everything in the CIP was in here,
Yeah.
you know, so I knew that was in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's at this point, if he's wrapping up this report, if it's important to the other commissioners, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem making a motion to push that 1.5 million off into, how many years out would that need to be?
Can we see it both ways in that report? If it stays in? Because we're going to have other discussions on the CIP, and we can move it around at that point.
It might not be material, I don't, you know.
Yeah, I mean, see, I believe it's a simple matter to run the rate model with it in or with it out, so.
So if you want to just make a statement in the report and say that if we take it out of the CIP, you know, the percentages go down by what, 1% or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Mitchell Woods was viewed as a peaking well, to help with the summer demand, so that you could run it at, and I don't remember the number, 250 gallons per minute? I think is what's occurring to me. But that you could not pump that sustainably year-round. That was for like a 3 or 4 month period. So, I mean, that's the idea, because when you have that high summer demand, it's meant to help with that.
And we had said before in the whole rate study, it would be ideal to have line items for different options, and then each line item is a percentage. You know, not to mix and match all these different options together, really just break it out item by item by item. The only time that we have to mix it together is when we start combining well treatments into one plant, right? But other than that, anything that is a dedicated single line item as far as an investment should be an individual line item and on the rate study impact.
So that you can see what each individual line item actually does to the rates.
That's what I would like to see.
Okay. Okay. I'm writing that. I'll see.
I mean, we pretty much have that already.
Yeah.
Right. So the only exception is
don't have
where we
conventional
combine the
wood.
well treatment. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's.
I think it was just that last comment.
Yes, existing, so that, the last one was appendix tables 11A through D. There's no table provided for past iron and manganese treatments at 7 and 8. Is that because the debt is already included in this study? Are all tables 11, and that's 11A through D, just for future debt? And the answer is yes. Those are just for future debt, and the existing debt is in table 9, including the iron and manganese treatment for well 7 and 8.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't table 9.
Yeah, that was in table 9.
Yep, okay, I see it. Good. I think I'm good.
All set?
Yep, thanks.
All set?
We had a sampling at wells 4 and 5 and 1031 as another item.
Yeah, so sampling at wells 4 and 5 was done. And what we did was took, and this was for the RSSCT, and as well as a bunch of, we figured while we're sampling it, let's sample for all parameters. So the whole, what we would call a Safe Drinking Water Act analysis. It includes organics, inorganics, right, SOCs, the whole suite, radiologics, and obviously PFAS. And what we did first was do PFAS and get that sent off to see what's in there now, because we were about to ship quite a bit of water down to Florida to this independent lab to run these tests, and they have actually run into the situation before where somebody will ship all that water and then they test it and there's no PFAS in it. So, I mean, that would be a good thing, right? If there was no PFAS there, but there is, and it came through, and we ran it on a blended sample because we were running both wells 5 and 4. We were running 5 at 625 gallons a minute, I think, and 4 at about just short of 200.
Right, but it's still about to the 800 gallons a minute between the two. But
right. And then we looked at, and we got the PFOA level was 44 parts per trillion in that combined thing. And then we looked at the past data points to say, how does that compare to the past? With 78%, and I think I'm using the right number, 78% well 5 and the rest, well 4. And when you looked at it weighted like that, based on the data points that we got on 4 and 5 before they were taken offline, that number would have been around 55 as an average, and we were around 44, so something less, but there's been a lot of variability in those results.
And I think the limits, I mean, the results might change as you pump more and...
Yes, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so our thought was, okay, you know, it's not exactly what we were measuring there before, but it's within the realm of reason, and therefore all that water got shipped to start those tests.
Mike, I printed out the results too for 4 and 5 separately.
Okay.
And, because we sampled well 4 separately, well 5 separately, and we also did the replacement compounds. So we got the results on those, and for well 4, they came back as, the replacement compounds came back as non-detect, and well 5 was on non-detect for replacement compounds, but the PFOA and PFOS levels are in here per well.
When you say replacement compounds? Genix or?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's the replacement. I mean, and I assume, I think there's like 4 of them, replacement compounds
Yeah.
that they're using for PFOA.
So I noted them on here because the list is longer, so you won't have to dig for them. Anybody else want a copy?
Yes, we got 55 and 52 in PFOA, 5 and 4.
That's at the top, which one's 4 and which one's
Which one's PFHXS? Is that fluoro nano?
The fluorohexane sulfonic acid, I think that is.
Yeah.
So that's only 2.6 on here. What's this? Perfluorohexanoic.
There it is, 2.6, yeah.
Perfluorohexanoic acid is 12. I'm wondering what the additional 2 chemicals are that DES is looking at regularly.
Oh, that's
6.2.
so the ones that they are going to add are the fluorohexane sulfonate, or sulfonic acid, it's called both. The fluorononanonic acid.
So those were 2.6 in non-detect in well 4.
Non-detect, yep, non-detect.
2.6.
Hexane sulfonate. 2.6. 5.
2.3 and
2.3 and non-detect.
non-detect again. But we got perfluorohexanoic acid at 11 and 12. Okay. Pentanoic acid. So certainly if DES ever looked at all the perfluorinated compounds as a class, the numbers would go up.
Yeah.
You can add all these up together.
And we don't know, I mean, they're gonna, as you're well aware, they're gonna come up with MCLs, or at least proposed MCLs, January 1, and then it has to go through the rulemaking process, however long that takes, and it's hard to say what that will be. Will that be an additive? Would these added in? Will they have numbers for each one of them?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking into the future to see where we're at now and what could happen in the future.
But as you know, the goal of our study was to say any of them non-detect.
Yep.
Was the idea.
Yep. It's good to know.
Okay.
So the only other question I have is I don't know what significance or level of effort of edits you're gonna do in the report. Just curious if you have an idea, maybe.
For the PFAS report?
Rate
or
study
the rate study?
primarily. I think the PFAS is straightforward. There might be
Yeah.
more stuff on the rate study that, from comments I heard. So I don't know if you know what level of effort, like a delivery date on the final report.
I would say that if he's, you know, Keith and Megan who are working on it are just waiting to hear what you need done besides what's already been done. So, I have minor changes here. I don't see anything really that's gonna take us long. So you know, I'm not the one doing it, so I hate to commit those guys, but I
No,
would
but do you
say-
have what you need to get a final done, or
Yeah,
you still,
yeah.
we have to
I
keep
think-
this thing
I
around
think
another
if-
2 months,
unless-
or?
Would the shell leave? I don't know if there's anything that that we're waiting on. Are you aware that
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't see any reason, unless there's something I don't know about,
No,
that it just can't be brought to the finish line.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, plus at one point, we were just gonna publish in the same numbers, so
Yeah,
it's not gonna change drastically anymore.
no, I don't think
It's
so.
really the cost study that's gonna have the biggest impact of all,
Mhm.
anyway, so,
Yep.
treatment cost study.
All set?
All set?
Also,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Take care of your cold. Have a
Yeah,
good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
making it out.
have a-
I'm sure
have a
you
good-
weren't in the best shape today, but
Yeah, well, you know, we had said we were gonna be here, and Keith couldn't be here, so hopefully I didn't spread
you
disease.
did well
among
despite.
people. Yeah,
thank you. Much
Have a good night, have a good holiday.
Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. Can you look at the Lysol?
Spray us all down.
Where do we go next? We already discussed the source water protection grant, right?
Yeah.
I think the draft survey,
You did
we
draft
did
sur-
that in the, we kind of did that in the non-public session.
Yeah.
Should we move that off,
We put it off? What'd you say?
John?
I mean, I don't know if there's anything to discuss about proceeding with the draft water rate.
I don't see it
What are we
at this
talking
time.
about? The
Survey,
survey, yeah.
number 5.
It's getting late.
Well, we discussed it a good deal in the non-public
Yeah.
session anyway, so, I mean, the next thing we know is...
But we're not really doing anything.
No.
The discussion was we're not doing anything.
The discussion was that we rework the
Where are
wording, the wording.
Okay. I didn't get a takeaway from that, so that's why I'm not sure what... I think we're gonna be sitting here a month from now and be in the same place we are today, with nothing else. I'm pretty
Should we
sure.
want to go with, we get your edits? Do we want to get those to Greg to
Sure.
for comment? And then once we get those back, we can get them back to the board?
Do that.
It's all, okay.
Well, and I would volunteer to come over in a week or so and
Yeah,
talk
if we
talk
wanna
about it
get,
for
you
an
know,
hour.
if the time's getting critical on this, I mean, we're not
Right.
gonna put a survey out in February,
I know.
you know, so if someone wants to correspond
Yeah.
back and forth, I don't mind being involved in that. It could be that. So whatever you
We'll
need.
get that out.
All right. We're on to old business. New business.
Well, I just got one old business thing, and Jill, thanks for following up with Channel 20. I know we're having some difficulties getting these meetings in a format that works on Channel 20 cable channel for the town cable channel. And I did look at the audio and video was way out of sync, so I do understand why they weren't put on Channel 20. It makes sense, and hopefully that can be corrected going forward, and I still would like to see these meetings on Channel 20 from this video right here, if that can happen. So if obviously if you could follow up with town hall streams and maybe see if we get a better quality from the videos from now on that will work on Channel 20.
We'll know tomorrow.
Yep. But thanks for following up on that.
No problem.
Superintendent's report.
Excuse me, just a couple quick things. So we had a meeting this past Friday with Horizons Engineering and CSSI. That's the contractor for the St. Cobain water main extension work. Just to kind of go over responsibilities and that kind of thing. And it looks like the project will be beginning in the spring. It's supposed to go this year.
Are you kidding?
That's great.
Another note, we did the St. Cobain work on Back River Road, the portion in Merrimack. That should be all completed this time. There was I got 600 feet in my mind. I don't have 600-foot extension, and additional two properties hooked up and on the line. We're going to be doing our PFAS sampling tomorrow. And
So
the LED.
That construction started in spring, is that because the frost period, or?
There was part of it was in the St. Cobain wanted us to pretty much do the administration of it. You know, the pay recs, all of that. That's something that should have been on them. So it took a little bit to get that out of straightened out, and there was some issues with the contract as far as the contractor and Horizon's, I think, responsibilities, if I'm saying that correctly.
It's the contract between St. Gobain and CSSI.
Yeah.
So their responsibility, so they were hashing that out for quite a while as well.
Everything should be all set now, and now it's just too late to really start anything and get anything done. It'd pretty much just be getting in there, making a mess. And I just want to make another note that our office, the MVD office, will be closed on November 22nd and 23rd for the Thanksgiving holiday.
No.
Oh, you gonna be here, Tony?
What?
You coming in?
Just gonna do accounting.
Next item is questions from the public, and at this time I see we got a lot of the public here, and we have 3 distinguished guests, new representatives. Would you please stand up and introduce yourself?
My name is Rosemary Ron. Kathy Stack. Nancy Murphy.
And you want to smile for the camera out there?
Thank you. Questions?
The question that I asked earlier about the testing,
Testing, yeah.
even Eurofins recognize the European model for testing the Rhine River, because it basically goes from Switzerland all the way down to the North Sea. It goes to 6 different countries. And that has now become the standard. And the EPA right now do not want to go there because it's opening up Pandora's box for them around the nation. Especially like down at Pease, where you've got the AFFF. Even in your own town here, AFFF may be in the ground at the different fire stations where they did testing. Is that going to end up in the basic water table? Quite possible. Because the PFBS is the sentinel within the PFAS group. And if you get that, everything follows behind it. So I think maybe you should push DES to ask EPA to accept the Rhine module so that you know exactly what's coming down the road. Because as Clark has stated publicly at some of the stakeholder meetings, we're not shutting you guys down. And he said it here, we can't afford to. Nobody, we need water. So if you know what's coming down the road and the possibility, you can then prepare for it from a capital point of view. Because right now you're only checking for a few of the total that is currently known. And it's something that, you know, you've got only X number of dollars to play with. So why not get the DES and the EPA to give you better results? Yeah, you're meeting the standard now. If the stakeholders, they suddenly drop the standard, shall we say, to 7 and 10, and you're already at 24, it's going to take you a couple of years to make changes in the
That's right.
filtration system. It's not going to happen overnight.
No.
And you've only got so many dollars like in your reserve. That could easily get eaten up.
Which is why we're looking at different proposals to
Right.
treatment.
Well, Ron, you had a discussion, I believe, with Lou today. So those tests are on the...
Yeah, we should be
samples
getting
we
that information, well, they're due, I believe, well, for the metals part of it,
Right.
before Thanksgiving. Once we get that, I mean, I can certainly get that out to the board as well.
Right.
And the,
Are those third-party certified results then? Because that's,
Yes.
without that, they're
The manganese and the iron will be certified, and the PFAS stuff that's gone to the lab, we've now got to sit like everybody and wait 4 or 5 weeks
Yeah.
before the results come through.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead. Thank you.
Please
So,
take your name, please.
my name is Kristen Ayers. Couple things. Michael Metcalf earlier, he had mentioned resin is better at removing short chains than PFAS, for short chain PFAS than GAC. I know that the Saint-Gobain agreement was already made for 5 years. Was that for GAC or resin?
It's GAC. GAC.
That was for GAC. Is there an, and I know that these are also forever chemicals is what they're called, because they're around for hundreds of years. So I'm just curious about the 5-year commitment from Saint-Gobain, and my concern is that we'll be footing the bill for this.
After 5 years. It's open-ended, an agreement, and it could change.
So you have the authority to
We can
request
open it
resin?
up at any
And then
time.
also, okay, perfect. Another question, will MVD propose warrants for PFAS treatment in March?
We're unsure right now. It's under discussion with our attorneys.
Okay, so I would like to ask the Board of Commissioners, what is your position regarding filtering all wells below the current limits of 70 parts per trillion?
We're getting prices to do that.
So you're all in favor of?
No, I said we're getting prices.
So I'm asking what your position is on it.
We have discussed it as a board, what our position is.
I'm just asking you individually as a commissioner, like what is your stance? Do you think that we should have filtered wells for?
We meet the standards as it is. The standards,
So no.
the standards could change very drastically,
I hope they do.
and we're planning for that. That's about all I can
So
tell
if they
you.
don't change, then is your,
I didn't say
because
that.
I know that this is coming in January and like,
The
Michael
meeting is
said.
in March.
No, I'm talking about the standards, the MCLs are coming in
But
January.
they'll
And
set
as
the-
Michael said, that could be much time for litigation, and I'm wondering your stance before we reach that point, because I know it's gonna be a quick timeline
We
for March.
don't know what the standards are going to be, and then at that time, they go to rulemaking, and it could be 6 months to
I
a year
think-
before they're accepted.
As a public though, I think we should know on record what your stance is. I really do. I think the transparency is lacking in that area.
Should go one by one and say whether you agree with it or not.
Yes, please.
Please do.
All I'm
Each
going to tell you
individual.
is that I will meet the standards, and if it comes down that we have to do it to get the lower the standards, I don't know enough. I'm not a scientist. I have to rely on our people, engineers, to survey. And,
I would think though
I-
after almost 3 years, you would have enough knowledge to base an opinion.
I'm not a scientist. I'm not a chemical
You don't
engineer.
have to be.
But you're in the position to make a stance, is my point. Like, we elected you to make a stance and to do this. So I'm just curious, where do you stand? Just like I would ask the representatives, where do they stand on issues? I'm asking you, as my commissioner.
Do you guys want the water to be treated? Do you want to give us
I want
clean,
the water to be safe.
non-contaminated water?
We want the water to be
Okay,
safe.
right now the water is not safe. ATSDR says that the 70 points is 10 times higher than what it should be. So therefore, as the engineer was saying, we're at 35 points relatively, that's half. ATSDR still says that's too high. You don't have to be a scientist or an engineer to read health studies, which I know this whole room has done intensively. So I personally, as a ratepayer, would like to know Tony's stance, yes or no. Does he want us to have uncontaminated water by man-made chemicals? Then I'd like Wolf's, then I'd like yours, then I'd like Dawn, then I'd like Chip's. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking you to give us the standard BS answer as we say. What is your personal opinion? Would you, as a commissioner, vote to give us, the ratepayers, clean, safe, uncontaminated water from these man-made chemicals? I think that's what Kristen's saying, but she's being really nice about it. So each individual person, that's what we're
If the
asking.
ratepayers want that,
No, we're not asking about the ratepayers. We're asking you.
you as a
what your
ratepayer
personal-
asking for that.
We're asking you right now your individual opinions on whether you choose to give us clean, man-made chemical, uncontaminated water. Each individual person. Tony, would you like to give us clean, uncontaminated water? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Wolf, would you like to give us clean, uncontaminated water?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Dawn?
Absolutely.
Chip?
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all we're asking for. Now the next question is, like Kristen said, we've been waiting for almost 3 years. Why wasn't this proposed? Like when you guys first found out about it, I exclude Wolf and I exclude Dawn because they weren't on the board. The three of you can probably answer that. It's going on 3 years now. Why wasn't something done about it when we first heard about it? We've been contaminated for going on 3 years now, and you've still chosen to do nothing about it.
Kathy, I think I would like to say that for me, the ATS-DR report was a big game changer as far as knowing that there are limits lower that are published by a federal agency. And I don't think that information was as readily available before this summer in June. So I think maybe those were reasons. I can't speak because I wasn't here at the time, but...
But we knew about the contamination back in 2016. So why has it taken this long, and yourself and Wolf to become a board member, for us to be getting something done? Sorry.
We were in negotiations for 2 years with St. Cobain. From the time we discovered it, and it took 2 years to do the final contract for them to build us a treatment plant. And that's basically why, when we were in negotiations.
But they're still only covering wells 4 and 5. And
Right, at the time, that
they're
was...
only going to be covering it for 5 years, like Kristen said.
That's right.
So what happens after that 5-year point?
What? We own the plant.
We own St. Cobain?
No, we own the plant.
Treatment plant.
Treatment plant.
Okay. Who's going to be paying for the upkeep on the treatment plant? Us?
For us, after 5 years, possibly. Could be longer.
Why would we agree to that?
Exactly.
We can open the contract.
But why would we have agreed to that initially when we know?
We wanted to get it on board to get the plant built. In order to get a signature from St. Cobain, we had to do that.
So what requirements at the end of this 5-year period, when we know these chemicals were going to remain, at the end of 5 years, then the cost would return to the taxpayers, the MED ratepayers. What is the criterion upon which you can go back to renegotiate that whatever agreement was made? I mean, do we have to prove that there is more contamination, or is it just you guys agreed to 5 years and now we have to prove some other harm to open them? What is the...
I mean, my understanding of the agreement is
If
5
anything-
years, it's a flat
If anything
rate.
changes, the agreement was for only PFOA and PFOS.
Right.
If anything changes and there's more requirements into
More
this...
sound, right, Rob? If they find more...
Exactly, if they add more to the...
Or we know that GAC isn't working in peace, so we know that that's an issue, that they've had breakthrough.
And in
No,
North
no, we're
Carolina.
talking about the chemicals.
If there's additional PFCs added to the list that meets the standard, we can go back to St. Cobain and say, we've got this much more now we need to treat for.
Right.
Or if the limits are lowered.
Limits are lowered,
But
right,
if
kind of stuff.
PFOS and PFOA limits stay the same, just say the EPA guidelines stay the same, and
nothing else is found, which we know there is, but then we are on the hook forever, in perpetuity, for filtration for those wells, because there was an agreement made that after 5 years, unless the federal mandates or state mandates change.
There was some
we've accepted.
difference on opinion on what operation and maintenance costs were going to be. We were able to get into that agreement as well. After 5 years, anything left over from those years that we do not spend, say operation and maintenance costs were down, and we were able to keep rolling that back in. So it could potentially go for more than 5 years.
Or much less than, which is what the GAC filter
Right.
seems to be doing in the other places. We already know that.
Did they put a window on it for us? Like you only have 10 years to,
No.
No.
I think
It can keep
all
rolling.
the funding is,
It's basically the 5
It's
year,
our
it's a
funding.
projected 5-year budget
it's all a
that can
projection.
be used over the course of the next couple of years without a window.
okay.
Can I ask for clarification with something, Ron? You said that the Gobain agreement is only for PFOA and PFOS.
Right.
We know that if there is a new limit set, it's going to be for 5 different chemicals.
We could technically go back to
We know for a fact that they're in the water. Other ones have started showing up now. So as these chemicals keep showing up in the water tests from St. Gobain, are you going to continually be able to go after? Or is it only the 5 that is going to be legislated if possible?
I'm going to go with probably just the 5 that are legislated, only
Okay.
because it's going to be standard driven.
Okay.
I think we'd have a hard time getting anything else for them to pay for anything else if it's not, if the standard isn't there.
So if DES, we'll say everything's all done,
Again, that's my
everything's all
opinion.
filtered. If DES in 2 years says we're going to add in 6.2, that's another chemical. We're going to add that in, and it's showing up in the water in St. Gobain. So do you guys then go back to the bargaining table with St. Gobain and say, listen, these new chemicals are showing up?
We can, yes, absolutely we can, but I think there'd be some sort of investigation as well, saying that it's from St. Gobain.
Well, and it took 2 years to get this far.
Yeah.
I
So,
understand. I know
Can I make
These
just
chemicals-
make a suggestion that I think perhaps we should look into different counsel, like that would actually not take that long, and really hold St. Gobain accountable for what they've done. If we contaminate something, then we're held responsible to clean it up. They have contaminated. There's no denying it. Clark Fries has said it straight up, like the fingerprint is pointing right at them.
Well, then it
So
might
let's
be
find a
it might
counselor
be an
that will
easier case than I'm
hold them
thinking,
to
but-
task.
The thing I wonder is if the answer is, well, who cares if the extra, and there's going to be 4, not 5, it's only 4, but besides PFOA, PFOS, it's 4
Yeah,
total.
okay, 4.
So anyways, I would imagine St. Gobain would say, well, the system you already have in place is filtering it out, so we don't have to do anything more, you know? I don't know what else we can do.
Well, if it changes, so in other words, the shorter chain stuff, the resin would
If
work
that
better.
breaks through.
We could.
It
right,
breaks through.
Right.
Right.
Or in general, if it affects the life cycle
I
of
would
the
like to say
filter.
something about this whole legal aspect of it. First of all, where is the MVD getting their legal counsel from specifically on this entire matter?
What firm are you using, basically?
What attorney or law firm, environmental law firm? I want some names.
Well, Bernstein Sure is our lead counsel.
And what is their specialty?
Well, they're a huge firm, so Greg Michael is our lead counsel. He pulls in various contracts, like people that, when we were going through the negotiations with St. Gobain, there was insurance clauses, there was liability things, so he pulled in various
Okay,
specialists
so
for
you
each
have
portion of
Michaels,
those.
you said?
Greg Michael.
Greg Michaels. Is he the only attorney that has been sitting in front of this board, speaking to this board?
No.
No.
Okay, do you have an environmental attorney?
I don't know their name off the top of my head, but like I said, Greg has various, some from up in Maine, that he pulls in for various pieces like environmental review or insurance or liability. He's got various specialists. I can find out who his environmental attorney is.
I can say that I am not pleased with the legal counsel and the legal service we've been getting. I think 5 years was absolutely ridiculous.
Unacceptable.
And we did not have a voice. The public did not have a voice. I want to see
Or
some
anything from you guys.
environmental specialists in the law field come to you guys and give you some really good guidance on how to recoup the damages. Because we need to go after these polluters, all of them. And we need to know who they are. I wrote to DES in October, and I am still waiting for a response regarding the potential polluters to wells 7 and 8. Yeah, I know about TCI, I know about DICOM. I want to know the other businesses they're investigating over there. I have not gotten a response. Do you guys know the names of all of the businesses in Amherst that DES is investigating that might be impacting your wells? This is important stuff. And you guys need to be asking these questions. And I think your lawyers should be on top of it. And if you had environmental lawyers that really know their stuff, you know, we have general practitioners. That's how I see Michael's. I'm sorry, that's my opinion. You have doctors that are specialists. We need the specialists in the law field to come in here and start working with you guys. We need to sue the creators, the makers, the manufacturers of all of these chemicals. They don't belong in our drinking water. Standard or no standard, they don't belong in the drinking water. I can't emphasize it enough. There are other municipalities that are doing that now. They're suing 3M or whoever. We have to start looking at that.
Gail, if I could just add something, the way I look at it too is if we're a company serving a product, and if somebody has sort of harmed our product, whether it's harmful to the user or not, it's just the fact that they've impacted our product, this should be some kind of liability there on their behalf. I understand what you're saying.
And it's not just the manufacturer, but any business that buys their product and uses it. So Saint-Gobain might say, well, we didn't make the chemical.
Right.
Hell, you bought it, you used it, and it got into our water because you were the vessel that got it in there. So we really need some better legal counsel. I don't think we're being served well.
I have a
My
question.
opinion.
And also, the Michael Metcalf mentioned earlier about that 1,4-dioxane is what put the kibosh on well 6, is how he described it. And he mentioned that it was from a gas spill. Whatever happened with that? I'm just curious, like historically, I'm, not up on all of this, and I know you guys have been through that with well 6 already. What happened? I know that well 6 is off because of it. Did the company that polluted pay for it?
Company went out of business.
So we want to make sure that we get from Saint-Gobain what we need from them before they fly out of the country, back to France.
Yes.
Okay, my turn.
Sorry.
That's okay. I have a few things. One is when the fellow was here from Emory and Garrett, he mentioned that carbon filters out PFAS, and he said peat is carbon. I just want to clarify that that is very wrong. Peat is made of carbon. It's decaying plant matter, but it is not. It's very different chemically from GAC. So I wanted to make sure that's corrected. I can see that a comment like that may get perpetrated, but it's very different chemistries. I mean, it could, peat, I doubt peat would work. I have a degree in biochemistry. I ran a research lab in Nevada that dealt with lignins, which are very similar to peat. And it's just, it's erroneous to think that you can make some equivalencies between peat and GAC.
Misleading.
Can I respond to that? Just 'cause
Yeah.
I think, when Jamie was talking about the peat, all I was using that was saying that you've got this coming down on top at 45, you're testing down here at 25. He's just saying it's like a sponge, it's just absorbing it and like filtering out some of it on the top. He's not saying that we're gonna go put that on a treatment plant or anything. It was just a natural filtration or sponge, I guess.
It's a barrier.
He thought that, well, I heard him compare peat to GAC.
Yeah, he stated
But
that
the
it was
other thing is that, when it's falling, you really don't know where the concentration lies. Is the concentration up here and it just hasn't gone down yet?
Well, that's
or is
what
it
the whole
down
study's
further?
about.
So you can't make any assumptions just based that, it's 45 here and 25 here, and it must be holding it up here. It just may just not have gone down yet.
I think
It may be at the same rate.
That's what the grant's for.
To figure that out, that's what he's saying. This is what it looks like, so let's get some data on this and find out what it's doing.
I think he was thinking it might be absorbing to the peat like it does the carbon,
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Well, it's
really,
not
because
just
it hasn't decayed far enough to the point where if you were to dry it out, you can burn it. But if you tried it now, it is totally wet, and PFAS, in its general terms, dissolves in water.
And, the other thing too with peat is you can't make an assumption based just on peat. It's the entire matrix. There could be a lot of ionic interference going on that's with the peat. I mean, you could have peat in one area and peat in another area, and they could be totally different. So, it's good that there'll be this study to analyze it, but I just wanted to clarify that peat in and of itself as an absorption material is not equivalent to GAC.
And I think that's not the goal of the study. The study is not a chemical study, it's a geological study that looks for concentration distributions, right? So it basically just says, I'm looking at these layers of material and an aerial distribution, and I'm looking and I'm looking and comparing concentrations. It's not meant to run lab tests. Does this material absorb any PFAS, and does it bind it permanently or anything like that? That's not the goal of the study.
Okay, because I just heard him say
I know, it was
GAC
misleading. I
is
was
carbon,
printing to you,
peat
but
is carbon.
right.
I just want to point out, it's not, the study is a grant application right now, which still hasn't been approved, and we haven't approved the funding of our part of it either, so it's still just
But it's not a chemical study by any means. It's a data, it's a data study. It's looking for data.
How is that study going to serve us?
Okay, that's all right. Do you mind if I finish?
Yes,
okay,
go ahead.
Thanks. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, whether or not the commissioners decide to move forward on a warrant article for further filtration, I'd like to consider a petition, if the decision of the commissioners is not to go forward, and depending on further research and publications, especially follow-up to the ATSDR report, I think myself, and there may be others that want to consider putting forth a petition warrant article to bond that filtration system. And I guess I'd like to ask the board their cooperation in having access to a lot of the financial numbers that you might develop about what that would cost, so that the petition warrant article is very thorough in conveying the impact to the ratepayers.
When we get the proposals from our engineers, it's public record.
Okay, good, thank you. And then regarding the attorney, Tom Burak, who used to be commissioner of DES, has a lot of experience in environmental liability, and I think he's back at Sheehan, Finney, Bass and Green now.
Yeah. He also represents Saint-Gobain.
So he might not be the one.
No.
Yeah, but he's a pretty good environmental lawyer. Too bad he's not on our side.
Everybody's in bed. Everybody's in bed.
Yeah.
That's kind of...
Yes.
I'd like to thank you all for hearing us tonight. I think we all recognize that none of you are environmental scientists, that you all found yourself in a place that you didn't want to find yourself, as did we. And I think we share some of the concerns, and I don't know if, I think many of us probably share the same concerns in terms of feeling that we, as the community that the MBD serves, have not been particularly well represented by the legal expertise that you've had available to you. We recognize you're not attorneys as well. But going forward, given that we are 3 years into this situation, we're frustrated with the time and the level of exposure that we all continue to have. I thank you for all your commitment that you all want to have safe water levels, but I would like to take that one step further and say, you've all said yes, you would like that. What I would like to know from each of you is, will you support for the MBD? Would you be willing to put a warrant article from the MBD with the information that you've gleaned from, the rate study and everything, so that it comes from the MBD rather than jumping through hoops for petition warrant articles for the community? You have the information. I think you want the same thing we do. And I think it would mean a lot to citizens to say, okay, we have asked you this. You are not asking this. We are asking you to put this forward on our behalf. Would you be willing to put that on at the request of the ratepayers, a warrant article saying that you will filter? Ratepayers have asked for consideration of filtration at all wells to non-detect and supply. I mean, the study's already been done. You have that information. Could that be included? Would you agree to that?
I personally would be in favor of that.
Okay. Mr. Keller?
I can't, there's some things that I have to know before I can say yes. Okay, I like to get advice from the attorneys, our civil engineers, hydrologists, and DES as well. And so a lot of things that, there's some things that enter into my decision. I can't say tonight, yes. You're talking about treatment at all the wells, non-detect?
Yes.
I can't make that determination right now.
Why can't you? Why can't you? I'm trying to understand.
I don't have enough information.
But you've had 2+ years to get the information.
You don't understand what happened in those 2 years. We negotiated. It took 2 or 3 years to negotiate with St. Domingue, okay? They wanted to send us 2 temporary filters at the very beginning, and then they said, you can have those filters, but we're not doing anything else. That's how it all started. It took a long time negotiating to finally get a permanent system, which I'm really happy about. It's taken forever to get it designed, and next year, hopefully, it will be in the system and online. But I'm anxious to see how it works. Okay, but you don't know. You say things like you say things that you don't know actually what you're talking about.
I do actually. I've been very involved.
You don't.
Tell me what I don't know.
You don't know anything about the negotiations.
You're right, because that's closed doors, and I don't.
That's right.
I wouldn't want to be in your seat. I really wouldn't.
So,
but I also wouldn't rely on those same people that you're saying that you're relying on for 2+ years to get nothing, to get 5 years.
They're pretty good people, let me tell you.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you won't give an answer today because you need to consult with those same very people,
there's a lot of things that have to come together.
Then just be straight up and tell us your answer.
For me, Don knows that.
Don't be hiding.
We talked about it earlier today.
We have been advised there's certain things we can, we'll take it under advisement, if I may, Joe. We'll take it under advisement. We can't give the answer tonight. There's certain things that are going on with litigation and stuff that we can't, we're kind of limited on what we can say.
It could jeopardize us.
Yes, we don't want it to cost us more money in the long run if things go the other way. So we will take it under advisement. It's not a no. It's possible. We'll discuss it. The board will discuss. We'll discuss with the attorneys.
So when I think that needs to be transparent to us, because we don't know what you guys have on your shoulders, and clearly it's more than what because you keep saying I don't know. So I want to know. I want to help you. I want to be on your side. I will write the letters. I will make those phone calls. I will do what you need to be done to have this happen. We've had 4 people elected to help, in the House or state reps. We've been successful. Use us to your advantage. Don't make us be the enemy to you.
We want to help you.
Yeah.
I would
We
say
have a
that.
lot of knowledge that maybe in certain areas you guys don't have. Like Mr. Comer, you said that, you're not a scientist, you're not an engineer. We have scientists in our group, we have engineers in our group. If you guys would give us the opportunity to help you in some respects, then all of us can work together and basically be happy in the end.
You can help us in the legislature by pushing
Tell us how you need to help us though.
pushing the DES
Absolutely.
to set the standards
That would make.
and then have the DES go after St. Cobain.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
TCI,
Because it's
Amherst.
cost, if we went legally against St. Cobain, it would have cost millions of dollars that the ratepayers would have had to pay.
They're a $1 billion company, so,
I know, but we have to pay the lawyers,
yeah.
Right.
all right?
You have to
$1
pay
to
the
$2 million
lawyers.
Yeah,
we
we'd
have
be
to
paying
pay to get what, 3 million?
Yeah.
What's the sense in that? We sit down with them, we bargained with them, and we got 3.6 million or 3.1 million dollars to build a plant to our specifications.
And we,
That's why it took 2 years. And if they didn't get that in 2 years, we'd still be in the courts and have nothing.
I wasn't part of this settlement, obviously, and I don't want to voice an opinion about this because it's water down the bridge. It is what it is today, and the only thing we can do is now move on with it. But I do know that settlements make things happen earlier. So we just have to accept that reality. Settlements make things happen earlier. So maybe, not that I want to speak again. I have my own opinions about it, but I'm not going to voice them here. But at least there's a settlement, and we have a time frame, and we're actively working on implementing it. As far as the warrant article, I just want to say there's no harm done in the ratepayers putting that article out there.
It's not going to have the same strength.
I didn't say that.
People
Let me finish.
are going to laugh at it.
Hang on.
No, they
Let me
won't.
finish. There's no harm done putting it out there while this board seeks the advice that it needs to determine if it is something that the board can pursue.
It's not going to happen.
Well,
We'll try, but we need you guys publicly saying, please vote for this.
I mean, I think what she's saying is when I go to the voting booth and
Sure.
there's a warrant article, and I look if it's the town
Sure.
council recommends this 700.
I don't disagree with that. But-
That holds weight
But
in my.
I don't disagree with it, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done at the same time. In the worst case, it's a preparation for the article that this board may or may not be able to put in place. But in the meanwhile, there's nothing lost in doing it anyway.
I would ask that, I know you said you'll take it under consideration, but there's no end to that. Under consideration doesn't necessarily have an end date for us. And I know the holidays are coming in and we've got MED meetings, annual meetings and things. Is there a way that after and I recognize there are legal situations that you're involved in, and however, I want to be clear that I recognize that you are not asking for that warrant article. I want it to be clear that your customers are asking you, we are here asking you. And if you could make that clear to your attorneys, that customers are coming to you and saying, we want our wells filtered to non-detect prior to getting to homes. And I think if people recognize the rate, the rate difference, what we're paying for health costs, what we're paying for bottled water, what we're paying for private filtration in homes, they will realize in the long run, it really makes sense. I wholeheartedly agree with Kristen that if I write a warrant article, it's very different coming from me as a citizen than it is from our water management company. It makes sense to the town. The town here says we can't do anything because we don't own the water. We're the citizens. We don't own the water. We rely on 5 commissioners to bring forth what is in the best interest of the people who are on Merrimack Village District Water. So what we are saying is we recognize that it's not you asking for this. We are asking that to whoever you have to speak to, your attorneys or whoever, we are asking that you, on our behalf, put a warrant article forward with the information that is you already have access to, as to what that will cost. And if you could let us know, and after you meet, however, you take it into consideration, how will we know what your decision is? How are we going to know, what that How will that information get back to us? And then the second thing I was going to ask is, and I think you had a good point, there are a number of us who have been so concerned about the water situation in Merrimack and the contamination of our public and private wells, that we have, many of us, apolitical prior, have worked our way to State House representative seats to act with that as a priority. I would ask, and I'm sure Rosemarie and Kathy and Wendy would feel the same, that if you could please let us know what we can do. I mean, if you have specific things that, there's an agenda. We have a very limited time frame right now to get things in before the legislature, and we don't want to have to wait till the next session. So, please utilize us. We're all on the same page. I think we all want the same thing. And what you're hearing from us is frustration about the time. We recognize we are not aware of the frustration you've had, but we feel that you, and that meaning us, have been underrepresented legally. And the fact that we got a 5-year agreement with Saint-Gobain, and I'm sure people jump through hoops to try to get that, but that is appalling, that a 5-year agreement.
5-year maintenance.
Right, but on a...
It can be opened up again.
Yeah, but I would
Just
bet
a
you...
5-year limit on the maintenance.
Right, which we know is
Operational
going to be, though, I mean, the maintenance is going to be required. These chemicals don't just disappear. So it's not like in 5 years, we can say, all right, then maybe they'll be gone. They're not going to be gone. So at the end of 5 years, then we're talking legal. I mean, you guys have to go back and we pay. So, that's, like you said, it's water under the dam. But I think from now, I think we could just... We all want the same thing, and let's look at the most cost-effective way that we can do it, how we can help you guys out legislatively, and to avoid any of the legal issues or whatever. We are asking for this. This is not an MBD-initiated request. This is a customer-initiated request of our water management company to put that warrant article on our behalf with the information that you've already gleaned from your contract people. So that's it. Thank you.
Wasn't there supposed to be a survey asking the customers about that? Whatever happened with that?
We have decided to table it for this meeting.
But that would give you the power to not have it
No,
interfere
it
with
has no weight whatsoever.
That our voices have no weight?
We do a survey, legally we're not bound by it.
But you could say our customers are saying this.
All
We're
right.
not.
So
but our
we
customers
send it out to all the ratepayers, and it comes back, they don't want to filter it, what are you going to do?
Then we'll educate. We have meetings every month. I don't know.
So probably best
Some people
not.
still drink it.
Probably best not to send it out.
Well, I have a question about that. What do you tell these people that, because it changes sometimes. Oh, well, you don't have to worry about breathing it.
Yes, you do.
Well, I know now, but a while back I had said, well, I have a wood stove and I put, a thing of water on there. Oh, that's fine, don't worry about that. Now you can't even boil an egg, even though it has a shell on it.
Boiling concentrates it.
I know that now, but the people that aren't here or don't belong to the group.
The town isn't informed of it.
And that's where you guys can come into play and have it on your website. Here's the facts about these chemicals. If you boil it, it concentrates it. Don't boil an egg with it. Don't boil your pasta with it.
Sometimes when I'm
You guys
trying to
should
talk to somebody,
educate the
they look
people.
at me like I am
That's on you.
nuts. And I feel nuts when I'm talking about it.
Can I just interject on one side? DES is not on your side. They turn around and say, nothing is enforceable. That 70 parts per trillion is a non-enforceable advisory. That's all it is. DEQ down in North Carolina have just got the governor to allow them to enforce. And I believe Governor Sununu has just passed a law on what the DES can do, but it's not enforceable. And I think you guys now need to, as representatives here in Merrimack, try and get that changed so it is enforceable, so they can go after the TCIs and after the Saint-Gobains. It took, I think, 4 years before they even tested the stacks at Saint-Gobain for emissions. Now TCI's shut down. They're not They're not emitting anything from any area other than now in Manchester. But the testing that they did on the stacks is ludicrous. It doesn't show the true picture. They didn't do any wind direction, so you're probably getting stuff blown down into your well 7 and 8 area, and also into the Amherst area. But they hide behind that. Oh no, we're just checking what's coming up that stack. They don't check to see which direction it goes. So again, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, and they are not your best friends.
Kathy?
Kathy Stack, and I'm talking as a private well owner. What can you do for me now that I find out that I'm not going to be hooked up to the main until the spring? I'm guessing your agreement that you all got into was to fix 7 and 8, well 7 and 8, and connect people to the main.
4 and 5.
4 and 5. 4 and 5, and connect those residents in the area to the main. Well, clearly...
No, the agreement with St. Cobain is just for the treatment plant. We had no bearing on the agreement with DES in St. Cobain as far as regards to the well.
Private well.
Okay.
So that's
Private
DES
wells.
and St. Cobain
Yes.
that I'm mad at.
Yeah, we
That's that old distinction.
We don't have a dog in that fight, I guess.
You know what? I watched them build Flatley. They're going to be building through this winter, I guarantee. But you can't. But DES, you guys can.
well, they got their footing, they got their foundations in, they're stick building. We'll be digging.
Frozen ground.
Yeah, not us. Connie, CSSI would be digging.
I understand, but as a
6 feet
private
down.
well owner who is in a jam, I can't sell my house to save my life with a contaminated well. And now I'm stuck with it for a few more months till the spring, when we've known for how long that I'm supposed to be connected to the main? Come on.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's it should have been in by now.
Yes, it should have.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
I just have a question about something the engineer said earlier about the backwashing. He was talking about the water's gotta go in, so all the little bubbles, for what did he call them?
Fines.
Yeah. So it's all gotta rise.
This is before any water has even passed through it, though.
Right.
Yes.
This is just at the beginning.
So all the particles that are in the bubbles
The
that
carbon.
he said have to go away, where are they gonna go? They're gonna get flushed through the water?
In the sewer.
The sewer.
The sewer lines? So they're not gonna affect our water at all?
No.
And then what about the first or second pass of the water going through? Is that gonna affect our water? Because I'm assuming that he's talking about wells 4 and 5.
Yes.
So if they're highly contaminated, would you not think that the first couple passes should not be going into the public water
When it
system?
comes through the filter, it's all clear.
We're gonna, the
Non-detect.
backwash would be municipal water, that it wouldn't be from 4 and 5 water backwashing. It is from system water that would backwash.
Yeah, that part I get, but then you're gonna be filtering wells 4 and 5 through that system, correct?
Yep.
So don't you think that the first couple rounds should be retested again to make sure that everything is being blocked from getting through? Or are you going
I'm sure,
to?
I am sure
Yeah.
there's gonna be testing.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you're not gonna assume that just
You're
because
gonna
the
have
water's
pre-
coming out, it's gonna be clear?
You're gonna have,
I think they call it
Before it goes in-
validation testing, is that what that's called?
Yeah, I've
so
heard
you're
of
gonna
that.
be the middle of the 2 filters, and you're gonna have at the end. as
Well, it's no different than any testing we do right now, anyway with any well. So any well is being tested right
I
now.
mean, you put a new green sand filter
Right.
online, you test, make sure it's working.
I'm sure
Before
there'll
you
be-
send it out.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm sure there'd be, and I, don't quote me on this, I'd have to find out from Mike, but I believe we test monthly right now for.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's gonna be weekly testing,
More
probably at the
rapid,
beginning, more sporadic testing at the beginning,
Okay.
just to make sure things are working the way they're supposed to be working. That would be my guess, but I might have to look further into that, but I would
Okay.
assume that's gonna take place.
Okay, that's wonderful, thank you so much. I've been getting text messages, apparently people have tried to come in, and they haven't been able to come in, so
Can we hear?
they tried to come in and the doors were locked.
The doors are always locked from 4 to 5 during the
Right.
non-public session.
Okay,
After
she
5.
tried to come in at 2 minutes after 6 and the door was locked.
That door should be unlocked. This,
They go to this door up here,
Which
maybe?
door? This door here is,
They may have went upstairs.
She may have gone to the wrong door then?
Maybe
Yeah.
they went upstairs.
more
the
likely.
meeting door's here, so if she went to the front door, that is locked
Okay,
at.
okay, we'll make a point of telling everybody then that they have to come downstairs.
There's a sign out
And-
there.
Well, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe the
Sign out there.
agenda, maybe the agenda can have the address of the building and the
Lower entrance?
lower entrance
Yeah.
on it from now on.
It does, the sign outside does say meeting room, and then there was a sign right here that says meeting room.
Yeah, that's how I knew what
Right.
door to come in because it says
But
meeting
we
room.
can certainly make another note that, you know.
To come
direct out
downstairs.
back. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, because I've been getting texts and people are just like, why is the door locked? And I'm just like, I don't know. So that's a great suggestion, Ron. Thank you for that.
On that note, I'm just saying, I mean, if other people were trying to come, as it is, you have people sitting in the hallway, if it's possible to consider maybe an alternative, I don't know if you have other rooms here that are larger, but
Even move you guys this way.
That's why I was just talking with the board earlier
You would have
today.
all that space.
I'm looking at doing something
Yeah.
different with the seating,
I was a classroom teacher for years.
so that, so we can utilize.
I know, we got way too much room over here.
Yeah. That was something that we just, we were looking into, you know,
It's for our protection.
trying to fit some more chairs in, you know, make it a little bit more.
Are we done?
I have one more thing. So I've been defending you guys on Facebook, believe it or not. You know, where people have been commenting negative things, and I encourage them to come to these meetings.
Absolutely.
And I can't stress enough that we really are on your side. And as far as educating people, if you all want clean water with no PFAS in it, it's going to take education. It's going to have to come from you. And I just suggest putting even a link to, you know, Merrimack Citizens for Clean Water. You know, people have been complaining about the website as it is. So just please, as commissioners, take a look at that and think of beefing it up and really educating the public on what they're drinking and what. It doesn't have to be your opinion. You know, legally, I get if you're in a bind, but just really making that effort because people do look to you for this information.
I have a question. Do you guys drink the water?
Yes.
I do.
You do drink the water?
Is it filtered?
No.
Mine is.
I'm sorry.
Whose is?
I'm 77 years old, so goodbye.
That's what Mom
Would
said.
you like your grandchildren drink
Do you
the
drink
water?
water?
They live in Maine.
Me?
Do
I drink the water?
Would you let them
When they
drink?
come to the
Yeah,
house,
I've been-
they
I've
what
been-
do they drink?
I've been in Merrimack since 1942, and I've been drinking water ever since, drink it every day.
With no medical issues?
No.
None whatsoever? Cholesterol?
No.
Nothing?
Well,
Wow.
Nobody in your family?
You
or
need to
anything?
be studying.
I'm gonna run a marathon this year. Next year.
Nobody in your family?
Maybe you've
or
got the
anything?
secret.
Yeah, find his blood and see what's in there.
I have another question. Is anybody like, I mean, everybody's drinking bottled water. You go in the grocery store and they're like, oh, are you from Merrimack? I didn't know if anybody had talked to anybody about like getting Merrimack a discount or anything like that. And does anybody talk to anybody?
I haven't.
We have, no, we have,
Okay. Geez, maybe you might want to do that.
I think we can get our wells filtered, we won't have to be worried about bottled water and all the plastic and all the other stuff.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
All set?
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you. When do we get the response about what the decision is about? I don't think I heard that.
The warrant
We actually
article.
did-
About the warrant
anything,
article?
but,
We're going to take it under advisement. How are we going to know what happens with it? That was, I'm
I
sorry.
was looking at this preliminary budget schedule when you said that, and that's why I pulled open this
we're gonna have to
page.
do something fairly soon because
Yeah.
it's, we're
Yeah.
gonna be doing warrant articles here pretty quick, so.
January 19th, it says warrant articles are due to the Department of DRA. It's at Revenue
I
Administration.
turned those in for review.
Is it safe to say at our next board meeting, we might be able to,
Probably.
let's,
December?
yeah.
Can you call a special meeting and have the reps present and work on it together?
I think Joe could call a special meeting, right? Isn't that your purview?
It's standard language pretty much, except for maybe the explanation part of it. Because it's got to, again, it's got to be reviewed by DRA.
Should be pretty simple, with wording.
I mean, I don't know if we need a special meeting at this point yet.
Not yet.
Right.
I'm sure we'd be happy to meet.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, I'm willing to say,
Right. If the determination is made, that would be helpful. Absolutely.
we'd
I
be
would
more
bet
than
you
happy to
Rosemary
all
would too.
come in
And Wendy would too.
help and push any.
Just because no time is sort of of the essence, because we're hitting holidays and I
And
know
I'm
you
gonna
guys
be
don't.
traveling the next 3 weeks pretty much for work, so
Yeah.
if we do it, we have to find the right time.
Sure, whatever works for you guys.
Right.
I think that might be also nice for the town to see, because people keep saying, why does the town do anything? You know, it's not just the MBD, it's the customers, it's the reps, it's the town council, it's commissioners, so certainly be willing to do that. And, you know, Kathy probably would.
Absolutely.
And Rosemary, I'm sure would, and Wendy as well.
I mean, I'm in favor of letting the voters decide what they want to do, and we can, you know, put it out there.
I think that's all we're asking.
We'll find the
We
best
don't-
way to do that.
But I think you have to have a caveat with that. That's great to let the voters decide what they want to do, provided they've been given the information to make a
Exactly.
reasonable
Right.
decision.
Yeah.
Right.
If they still believe that drinking water out of my well would be okay for them, it wouldn't be. But I know there are many people in town that believe there's nothing wrong with the water.
So by December, you'll have that decision made as to what, okay, thank you. And you'll either reach out to us or put something on the website or something maybe, just to let us, however you decide, or,
Yes,
Okay.
we can do something. yeah.
okay, that'd be great, thank you.
I also, before we adjourn, real quick, I want to give a shout out to Michelle. She has revamped the accounting and the financial aspects, that it's just phenomenal, and I know we're still a little behind, but she's getting everything stratified and organized and very smooth and up to date, and it just, she needs a shout out.
Yeah,
Yay.
Very good job.
Motion
Motion to adjourn.
to adjourn?
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Wonderful, so we're about to do an upgrade on that next year.